This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
3 minutes after 10 is the time. Was there ever a There was, wasn't there? I wish we could graph it. I wish we could plot a graph to see. Do you know that in the immediate aftermath of the Brexit vote, immigration ceased to be a particularly salient point for the British public? Would you like to know why? Oh, you probably know already, because people behind microphones like this and writing articles for newspapers like that were not constantly telling people to be frightened or angry about immigrants. It doesn't really matter what immigrants you're talking about, does it? Whether it's asylum seekers or Polish builders, the song remains the same. You should be terrified. You should be terrified. I'm on the Daily Mail website and I'm angry. You should be furious. You're being robbed. You're being nicked. Never mind that the paper's owned by an actual blooming Viscount. It's that fella over there, labouring on a building site that's really responsible for the paucity of your existence, or those people living 4 to a room in a former hotel who are the real reason why you haven't got, I don't know, a golden water feature in the back of your garden. It's a slightly unfortunate turn of phrase. I meant a water feature made of gold. And it just works. It's so simultaneously illuminating and depressing to understand it and to watch it happen, because there's a tiny little bit of you that always thinks people will do better next time. People will know better next time. Do you remember when Farage was wanging on about Romanians all the time? And I mean all the time. You wouldn't want to live next door to one. It was Romanians here legally, working. I wouldn't want to live next door to one of them. Go back to the 1970s, it was everybody with dark skin that was the problem. It's the concept of repatriation, which Elon Musk is using his platform to promote with regard to this country, was a hideous policy, rightly regarded as disgusting by every honest person in the land. But here we are back again. It's worked. From the first moment Farage turned up in Dover with his Fisher-Price binoculars, rubbing his thighs at the sight of people coming over in dinghies, people who make up roughly 4 to 5% of the overall number of asylum applications in this country. I'll say that again, 4 to 5% of the overall figure, that we were set on this course. I don't even know whether or not the old conspiracy, it's not a conspiracy, the old theory about very, very wealthy media owners being so desperate to avoid going the way of many other European countries over the years and actually having an economically motivated revolution that they put so much effort into demonising the other. Because, to be fair, historically, this is quite a nice place to migrate to. It may not be the nicest place in the world, and it may not be the nicest place that it could be, but we're generally okay. We're generally pretty good in this country at recognising humanity over ethnicity and diversity over discrimination. And you can go back quite far in history. You can go back beyond some of the worst excesses of racial discrimination to see what we really stand for as a population. You go back to Cable Street and places like that. But here it is. It keeps some people warm in bed at night, this fear, this anger. It keeps some people in very lucrative employment, this fear, this anger. And, of course, it leaves some people living in abject terror and being abused in the public spaces of their own hometown because we have unleashed that demon again. It's back out there. It's back out there. And what do we do about it? So Eleanor and I chat every morning about what we're likely to talk about on the programme. You'd probably be a little bit surprised how uncertain we sometimes are when we actually step into the studio and the light comes on. I have a vague idea of the territory that I want to be poking around in, but I don't necessarily have a formal question, neatly phrased, that I can drop on you from a great height at 4, 5, 6 minutes after 10. Who am I kidding? At 14, 15, 17, 18 minutes after 10. And today one of the contenders was, how do we do this? How do you operate in a world where everybody is pretending that the single most significant issue in the country is former hotels now repurposed as processing facilities or holding centres for asylum seekers? How do you operate in a world where everybody else is pretending? And when it's just far-right commentators, agitators, columnists, journalists, Billy Bunch of Numbers with his bulldog avatar, when it's just them doing it, you can close the door, you can ignore it. Michael in Reading says, why don't you just stop reading the newspapers? Well, 2 reasons, Michael. The first is that the government is now dancing to their tune. And the second is, it's quite hard to find anything else to bloody talk about when everybody else is only ever talking about this. But it's my job to overcome the second problem. The first problem is real. Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper are now trying to address these, quotes, problems, end quotes. Actually, between you and me, I'm still torn on which way to go into this conversation. Do we do it on the premise of how should we be conducting ourselves in the context of this insane public discourse, in the context of an absolutely insane public discourse, which is pretending that these issues are the only issues in town. That Reform, obviously desperate to fight the next election on one issue and one issue alone, because it's the only thing they can ever campaign on. The only thing they can ever do is just throw more fuel onto the fire of fury and stoke more flames of anger and dissatisfaction without ever pointing at the people truly responsible for it, and pointing endlessly, well, as I've already told you, on Mondays it's Romanian builders, on Tuesdays it's Polish care home workers, on Wednesdays it's Filipino nurses, on Thursdays it's, I don't know what it is on Thursdays, Nigerian security guards, on Fridays it's Pakistani accountants. I don't know what it is on Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's like the Craig David school of racist agitation. And it works, because here we are. Turning everywhere you look. Look, there's Yvette Cooper on the telly warning students against overstaying their visas. There's Keir Starmer on social media, still on a platform that is being used to promote National Front policies by its own owner. There's Keir Starmer warning that you're going to be deported if you do X, Y or Z. There they are, making comments about people coming here with family members from some of the most unpleasant parts of the world. So how do you have a conversation that is rational when the whole world has gone mad? Answer, I don't know. Which is probably why we won't tuck into that particular topic just yet, because I need to do a little bit more work. I'm with Davey on this. It's like a racist Groundhog Day, James, and it's absolutely exhausting. That's exactly right. And, I'm only 2 days back from holiday, but that sense of exhaustion at the discourse. How many calls can a radio station take from people who think they've got the answer to the small boats problem? I mean this. It's not a rhetorical question. I don't know what the answer is. 764,000 apparently, and counting. I know what we should do. We should send in the Alsatian dogs or mines left over World War II. I've got a great idea. How many more calls can you take on a radio station from idiots who don't know the first thing? Talking about asylum seekers in Ireland bringing over 20 family members. Google is your friend. And yet here we are still filing these calls, taking these people. Unbelievable. They're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. Absolute lies. And yet somehow informing political discourse on both sides of the Atlantic. It's absolutely extraordinary. And I do not know, and God knows it's lonely as well, how many people in the UK media even pop up occasionally to say, guys, you've all gone mad. Or even to say, what the hell are the Tories playing at, considering that they caused this chaos, they caused all of these breakdowns in the system, and now they're pretending that it's all Keir Starmer's fault. It's absolutely insane. How do sane people conduct themselves in an insane universe? Orwell has some advice for us. If you can hold on to the truth, even if you are the only one, you will not go mad. I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure that's true, George. I think Eric might have got that one wrong. If you are literally the only one telling the truth in a world full of liars, I think you might go mad. It's like a tension, isn't it, between, what's that film, the film, the news journalist, the TV news journalist. He's leaning out of the window going, absolutely. So those are the two poles of journalism at the moment, aren't they? The two poles of public discourse. In an insane world, do you truly stay sane by holding on to the truth? Or do you actually go bonkers like that guy in that film whose name I can't remember, which you'll come to me in a moment? Or do you or do you go the other way? I don't know. So what's the topic today? Let's file that one away. Let's move into that Network, it's called, isn't it? Who's the actor? It's an English actor playing an American journalist. Now, come on! I'll play the clip in a minute. Keith, get the clip ready for me, because it's so powerful. So you have to keep talking about it. The answer to your question, says Anne-Marie, is you and Nick Abbott. I think it's a little bit better than that, but my goodness me. It's not great, is it? And the reason why you can't just stick your fingers in your ears and talk about things that actually matter. Peter Finch, well done, thank you. We got there in the end. Can we get that clip ready? It's so good. Peter Finch. The other element of the conversation, of course, is that you when the government joins in, you can't insist that people get over themselves. When the government joins in, a left-wing government joins in, you have no choice but to continue the conversation. It's quite bizarre. It's like a form of, I don't know, osmosis, isn't it? It's a form of contagion. Don't press the button. It's a form of contagion. In that what starts off being punted by the very politicians responsible for crippling the country through Brexit, austerity, Liz Truss, Boris Johnson, they sort of pop up, dust themselves down again, rely upon the fact that nobody in my industry is ever prepared to say, oh, I'm sorry, lads, I got that one horribly wrong. Maybe we should start listening to the people who were right about Boris Johnson, who were right about Brexit, who were right about Donald Trump, who were right about austerity, who were right about Liz Truss, who were right about David Cameron. Maybe we should give them a run out now. Let's not. Let's double down on all the cheerleaders for Liz Truss's budgets and for Brexit and for Johnson. Let's triple, double, quadruple down on them and see what happens next. Because as Einstein never actually said, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different result. And here we are. The government are joining in. Great line in The Guardian today from Gabby Hinsliff. This is really strong. Labour can never go far enough. This is when immigration becomes the policy framework, if you like, the policy battlefield. Labour can never go far enough to please some supporters without horrifying half the rest. It's the broken economy that is the country's biggest problem. It's the consequences of all those things that I've just listed. Plus, of course, the pandemic, horribly handled by Boris Johnson, but not in and of itself caused by him. And yet here we are, wanging on about cracking down on refugees, bringing their families to Britain, or stopping students from staying for longer than they'd originally arranged to come for. And it works. So, are there any people... This is a really important question. And I don't know the answer. Who is Keir Starmer trying to appeal to? 0345 60 60973. And do they exist? The people who have been successfully persuaded that immigration is the root of all evil, or that asylum seekers are the reason why their lives are not great. Or let's be more generous. I don't want to be too sweeping in this. People who have been successfully persuaded that having people living in a hotel round the corner, a former hotel round the corner, is the single most important thing going on in their town at the moment, or their country, or their life. I mean, the ones that turn up to paint roundabouts or put their masks on and start throwing things at police, I don't think anyone would argue Keir Starmer's ever going to reach them. But if you look at these very specific policies, these two very specific policies that we are presented with today, the first being a ban upon asylum seekers, successful asylum seekers being able to bring their family members over. On average, it's minors, it's children under 18 and a spouse. Or if you are a child under 18, it's a parent. So the average is about 2 when it happens. And that is not going to happen, which brings us into line with some other countries. It's not like a sort of sweeping or revolutionary policy. And there is a rationale for it, which I shared with you yesterday with that statistic about how appallingly Boris Johnson's plans to cover up the impact of Brexit by letting people in from chiefly India, China and Nigeria backfired. But these two policies, we're going to stop students from, quotes, overstaying, or even perhaps from applying for asylum, having completed their studies. And we're going to stop successful asylum seekers from bringing family members over. Those are the two policies. 0345 60 60973. Who is that? Genuine question. Who is he trying to appeal to? And do they actually exist? It's as if there must be a huge hinterland of people, the ones that turn up to terrorise refugees in former hotels are at one extreme, whether they are, quotes, concerned mums, end quotes, or far-right agitators who've been bussed in from 2 towns along. So at one extreme, you've got them, right? And then at the other extreme, you've got well-meaning but possibly slightly misguided and idealistic people who don't recognise that you need to have a functioning immigration and asylum system. You know, borders are real and have to be observed. So people who say, I don't care how many people come here, I don't care how many refugees we accept. I mean, they might have knowledge of the reality. We don't do any more than any other comparable country. In fact, we do rather less in per capita terms than, for example, Ireland. Those are your two extremes. You're sort of chomping bulldog roundabout painter. And then you're, I don't know, look, if we're going to be a bit lazy in generalisations, you're sort of muesli munching do-gooder. And then there's this huge swathe of people, the massive majority of the population in between those two poles, to varying degrees. You plot the graph along all the way. Who is Keir Starmer trying to appeal to? And then the second question is, well, either, do they exist and will it work? I also want to know how you feel about these policies, because if you like these policies, you are not racist, okay? If you think that, for example, we should be trying to dial down numbers a little bit in these areas, and you give me sensible, intelligent reasons for it, that doesn't mean you're basing your judgment of somebody on the colour of their skin or their geographical origins. It means that you know when the Tories introduced a system designed to bring 6,000 people in to work in the care of the infirm and the elderly, they ended up with 679,900 carers and their families, according to their own figures. And that is something that needs to be addressed. Whether it's the most important issue in the country, I don't know. But it needs to be addressed. Who is he addressing? Who are they actually addressing? Is it you? Are you someone that is disgusted by the thought of a former hotel being set fire to, but who also feels that something must be done? Something must be done. Is it you? Is it your mum? Is it your work colleague? 0345 6060 973. Who is he trying to appeal to? Do they exist? And will it work? All right? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. And this, I really stress, is not a rhetorical question. I mean, the idea of anybody in the front line of other parties, except perhaps the Lib Dems at the moment being in charge, is absolutely terrifying. You think Liz Truss was bad, wait until you give Nigel Farage a go. But you can't have a government based entirely on being the least bad available option. I kind of want to see some light here. I kind of want to come to a slightly better understanding of why Starmer is going down a course that many people supportive of him and his party find varying degrees of repellent. But every vote is equal. And which votes is he chasing with these policies? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. Who is he appealing to? Do they actually exist? And will it work? Hit the numbers now. You will get through.
James O'Brien on LBC.
I think, and I know it's a little bit unfair of me to inflict my pontifications on you, sometimes for endless, it must seem, minutes, while I'm trying to work out what I actually think. But I think that I want you to tell me there are people who are rightly repulsed by Nigel Farage's bigotry, ignorance, and colleagues, but who do have this phrase, legitimate concerns that Keir Starmer recognises and is currently addressing. I just need to know who they are and what they look like and whether this will work. Where are the needles that will be nudged by announcements about asylum seekers no longer being able to bring family members over, or students not being able to apply for asylum when they finished their education? That's who are the people that Starmer is appealing to. I know who he's alienating. I know whose support he is losing or indeed taking for granted. But who are the people he considers, who are the people he is prioritising, if you like, over them. When this line in The Guardian today resonates with you as it does with me, Labour can never go far enough to please some supporters without horrifying half the rest. Who are they? Who are the people that this is designed to appeal to? And then crucially the question becomes, will it work? Can it work? 10:24 is the time. Jeff's in Harrow. Jeff, what would you like to say?
Hiya, James.
Hello, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, really uncomfortable saying this out loud, but I think it might be someone like me.
You don't need to be uncomfortable. That means I've set the introduction up a bit wrong. So thank you. Thank you. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable, but tell me why.
Yeah. Right. I mean, first and foremost, I'm absolutely disgusted with all these lunatics, St. George flag waving lunatics who want to burn down hotels.
Yes.
But for me, it's a kind of accounting thing, like you're always good at pointing out. And I can understand why some people would, and like myself, if we currently got a housing crisis, yeah. There's lots of people that are on waiting lists for social housing, etc. So if we've already got a really, really big waiting list, having more people come into the country who are going to join that list, it will make people perhaps on that list think, oh, that's unfair, so that causes issues. And also, a lot of these people, whilst they will fill gaps in the labour market, because we do need these people, a lot of them are going to go into low-paid work. So as you pointed out before, unless you earn over X amount pounds a year, you're never actually a net contributor. So whilst we say, oh, they're contributing, they are contributing. Of course they're contributing, but to the labour market, but not financially into the country. I mean, obviously that's another argument, because if we...
Well, it's not. I mean, and it breaks down, but who's going to do those jobs instead?
No, no, I understand that. I mean, we obviously... Yeah, I mean, obviously the government are trying to get people that are perceived to be swinging. So
you've got a broad sense that even if people are well-meaning and working, so you're not buying into the myth that they're all nicking your jobs and signing on at the same time.
No,
but the simple arithmetic suggests that we can't take as many people as we are taking, and the housing list would be an example of that, and a politician who starts pointing out the idiocy of selling off our housing stock in the 1980s and 90s is on a hiding to nothing. Yeah. What, I mean, this isn't a gotcha, but it's going to sound like one, Jeff, so just ignore the question and move on to something else if you want. What do you think net migration was last year?
I haven't got a clue.
Do you want to have a guess?
I don't know. I really don't.
No. That's the problem, isn't it? Because we're not counting.
No. And I think
So he is perhaps trying to appeal to you, but how does he move your needle? Is it working? Do these two announcements land with you? See, are you? And there's no shame in this. It's saying, yeah, good. I don't think people should be able to bring their family members here until they've been here for 3 years or until they own over a certain amount. Is that comforting you?
Not really. No. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I look at it from I think
Go on.
The Labour Party and Starmer are in a really, really difficult position because and this is going just a slight tangent, but he's got to schmooze up to Trump, okay?
Yes.
So you've got Farage is mirroring Trump's policies. So Starmer can't come out and say Farage is an idiot, he's a racist, he's whatever, because he's associated himself so closely to Trump. It's a very. Do you see what I'm saying? I
don't know if I agree. It's a valid. It's a valid idea. I don't know if I agree.
I just think they're in a really, really difficult position. But that's off on a tangent. But
so what makes what moves your needle then? Because it's not going to be these kind of policies. And net migration, just to go back to that gotcha question, has actually plummeted. It was down to 431,000 at the end of last year, and it's going to continue to fall. And that gets no coverage at all. The 4 to 5% of people that come here in small boats are on the front pages and some radio shows every single day. But the actual numbers, the actual figures that inform some of the feelings that you're sharing with me today, they don't get any coverage at all because some people aren't really interested in the figures.
No,
what would make you feel better about, and this is going to sound unfair, so forgive me in advance, what would make you feel better about the numbers that you didn't know when you rang in?
To be fair, if the numbers, I mean, I suppose if I'd looked into it, I'm sure the numbers would be readily available.
Well, they have been huge over the years, largely as a consequence of Boris Johnson's policies, which no Tory will tell you with a straight face. But what would make you feel better?
I don't know. I don't know, and I don't think it's the problem is being blown up by a percentage of people coming into the country. The boats are just being targeted because it's easy. It's red meat.
Good copy, lots of clicks, and it does speak to something primal in us, in all of us. This, when people use the word invasion, they know exactly what they're doing. It's not an invasion, but that's a very emotive word. It's a very provocative word. You see, that's a great call, Jeff, and I'm really grateful to you because that is the problem I'm trying to articulate today. Is I can't see. Once you break it down, who he's actually trying to appeal to. He thought it might be you. Maybe you still think it is you, but we can't really articulate what it is you want from him, which makes you wonder who he thinks he's appealing to, which is a question anyone can answer. Who do you think Keir Starmer thinks these policies are going to appeal to? 0345 6060 973. Dominic Ellis is here now with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 10:33 and it is impossible to turn on your radio, your television, to go onto the internet if you have any vague interest in the news, unless you have arranged your algorithms and your preferences in such a way that you are avoiding the news now. It is impossible to ignore the fact that there is only one story in town almost every day. Yesterday, I don't know if you were listening, we spoke to a very senior military figure about the £10 billion contract that this government has just signed with Norway to supply 5 massive anti-submarine ships as part of the recalibration of Western defences brought about by Russian aggression and Donald Trump's cowardice. It's an extraordinary story, an amazing moment, and yet I mean, it was reported, but nowhere near as much as the 4 to 5% of asylum applicants to this country who cross the channel in small boats. Nick is crossed with me for a different reason. He wants to know why we're not making more of the fact that there were fewer crossings in August than any point in the last 3 or 4 years, which is a valid point. But again, Nick, the facts matter more than the headlines. There were fewer boats crossing the English Channel in August than in any other August since 2019, 6 years. But there are more people on the boats, so the headline isn't quite as uplifting for people concerned about this issue as you would argue. The fact that the overall numbers have plummeted gets barely any coverage at all, and the fact that the government is trying to appeal to people who, and this is where I run out of road a bit, who what? Jeff in Harrow a minute ago thought it might be him. I'm not sure it is. This is brilliant from Mark. The craziness of the media now is that they're turning migrants into the proxy villains in a story about national decline, when in truth, they're often the ones holding it together. The same papers are the ones that fueled the nation into opting for national decline. Vandals, arsonists are the true saboteurs. Not just papers, mate, broadcasters as well, social media figures, influencers, all of the people that told you austerity was great, bankers shouldn't be blamed. Boris Johnson was going to be the next Churchill. Brexit was going to be a liberation and an act of national enrichment. Sovereignty was a word they didn't really understand the meaning of. Liz Truss, the bloke that edits the Sunday Telegraph, Alistair Heath, I think he described Liz Truss's budget as the finest thing he'd ever seen. And possibly not even in the context of budgets, in the context of life, finer even than a roast dinner or a delicious chocolate eclair. These people are bonkers. And now they're telling you that it's all the fault of the immigrants, and we're lapping it up. And later this week, we'll probably have a conversation about how people like you and me operate in a universe that's gone so obviously mad. But for now, the question I'm asking is, who is Keir Starmer appealing to? Who is Keir Starmer appealing to? And that is, a question I really hope you can provide a better answer to than I can. Some days, I don't think you will. Some days I think I've got hook, line and sinker. I've nailed it all. Other days, I'm really hoping you've got a better answer than I've got. A more uplifting, a more optimistic, a more upbeat answer than I've got. Who is he actually appealing to. 0345 60 60 973. This is good, from Adam. It's not the cult members that he's trying to turn, James. It's not the racists. It's this idea that a large chunk of people currently supporting reform is a very soft chunk. He's not trying to out Farage, but if he can present a position of being in more control of the borders, then he cuts off all the arguments about emergencies and national security. But there isn't a national security emergency, so how can he win that? I don't know, but I like that answer more than some of the ones I've come up with. Ned is in Bradfield in Essex. Ned, what would you like to say?
Morning, James. Actually, that text is quite brilliant, isn't it?
Because, I think so.
I feel slightly the same way. So I think, who does this appeal to? I can't give you a straight answer.
Okay.
All right. In all honesty, I can't give, because it's really puzzling me at the moment as well. But I can only give you how I see is what's happening. And I think we seem to be in a permanent, with Labour's, not policies, but even their communication is a sort of game of whack-a-mole at the moment. You know? I don't see how they are kind of keeping up with the absolutely, hellacious narrative that's been, well, we're all used to this. I won't go into the 14 years of and everything. We've covered that sort of ground. But
I wonder if we have, I know I have today, but I wonder if that is actually what Keir Starmer should be doing more of, is actually reminding people who is responsible for the mess, or the perceived mess, or the decline of the country, because it is not the people that he's targeting with the two policies we're discussing today.
I quite agree. So I've had two thoughts about this, really, and I think the two overarching things, I think that this will develop and we'll go, and I expect sort of one of the things that you would probably counter. The two things is number one, any politician in any country across the globe is having the same issue with immigration, and they have people complaining about immigration. So they will all be going up to the stump to say, I will reduce immigration, and that'll be global, for example, but we still have immigration, okay? So they've got responsibilities. They're being held to account by their voters, say, you're not doing enough, you're not doing good enough, you said you do this, you haven't done that. If, God forbid, and I only live around the corner from his constituency, that creepy Uncle Nigel does get into power, one thing that dawned on me was that if he did do that, if he takes us out of all the treaties, which is his want, he's also got absolutely no credibility within the EU, has he, given his entire career. So he's going to find it incredibly difficult to do any kind of returns agreements or any kind of deal, I would thought, with anyone, across the channel there, if they won't give him the gosh darn time of day. And if I was Keir Starmer, I'd be saying, if you think this guy's got the answers, look at his track record. Do you think Tusk is going to give him the time of day?
So
do you think Macron?
What we've got is I don't want to use the word surrender, but the idea that he is going to make a case for immigration at this point in the political cycle is over. That is not going to happen. He is dancing to a tune of too much. Yeah. And today is not the day to have that debate. Not between you and me, not between him and whoever else. Is the direction of traffic is fueled by an acceptance that there is currently too much. I don't understand why he's silent about whose fault it is. If he is actually comfortable portraying it as a problem, why doesn't he explain that it's a direct consequence of Boris Johnson's desperate attempt to cover up the damage Brexit was doing by inviting people from much, much further afield and therefore much more likely to bring their family members with them to come here and fill the gaps in our labour market. But what then becomes a successful policy? Do you welcome, for example, the idea that a successful asylum seeker who may well, to just tug your heartstrings, have come here from, Afghanistan or Syria or somewhere truly horrible, and now he can't bring his wife or his children?
Yeah, I mean, again, that isn't going to rub with the British public, isn't it? Because they want them all out, all the people that are up in arms about this. I mean, Yvette Cooper was on with Nick this morning, trying to sing a decent tune. Yes. And he was stepping on every flipping organ pedal. You know what I mean? Trying to sort of knock her out of key. I mean, God love Nick. I listen to him all day long. But I was in the pub the other day. I'll share this with you, my local. Yeah. And because this will ring true with you after the conversations. I was having a chat with the landlady, who's lovely. She does yoga and a vegan, and somehow we got around to Sadiq Khan. Yeah. And she told me that if she goes to London, she's going to have to wear a burqa, and I nearly fell off my stool.
Good
you
Lord.
know, and I was like, you've heard this, I've heard this.
I haven't heard that, mate. I mean, I'm not on Twitter anymore, remember? I'm on Blue Sky. I'm in the lovely, warm embrace of Blue Sky now for my social media. But, I mean, some of the stuff about Sadiq Khan is off the charts. And, in fact, a lot of journalists who were comfortable with, Zach Goldsmith's racist mayoral campaign set those dogs running years ago. But I can't. What did you say to her, just out of interest?
I said, who told you that?
And what did she say?
And she looked a bit confused. And I said, look, I don't live there now. I mean, I still go into London 2 days a week. I'm born there, you know. Yeah. I lived there forever. I said, who told you that? And she went, well, you know, it happens. And I said, no, it doesn't. And we went through the process. And she said, well, if it's not happening now, it'll probably happen to my granddaughter. And I was just I'd never actually heard it in person. And I thought...
I've not heard that one. I've not. I mean, I've heard all the nonsense about you're not safe, or, you know, you can't do this and you can't do that, and everyone's wearing balaclava helmets. In fact, the only people I've seen wearing balaclava helmets lately have been the ones outside the asylum accommodations. But hey-ho, maybe it's two different types of balaclava helmet. So you can't... That's the problem, isn't it? So there's nothing Keir Starmer or indeed Sadiq Khan can do with someone like her.
It's down to the woodwork, and I think...
What do you mean, the woodwork?
Well, I mean, I think that you know, it's the constant batter of... It's like the woodworm that's the rot is in the wood for that. You see what I mean? And I'm like, I tried to... Who told you? But she sort of looked at me and say, oh, well, that's her just version of reality. And I was like, I don't know where you got it from, but please don't do it.
No, there'll be people coming away from the station today convinced that every asylum seeker in Ireland has brought 20 family members with them, because if you don't cut that stuff off at source, it reaches parts that other lies and propaganda cannot reach. There's something about race-based or discriminatory propaganda that is really strong and intoxicating for certain kinds of people. And yeah, you're right. It's a lucrative business selling that poison, selling that snake oil, and that's the problem today that I think we both have. In that, can Keir Starmer offer an antidote to snake oil? There isn't an antidote to snake oil, which is why I'm hoping Adam is right. And all of the media say, he's trying to out Farage, and lots of Labour supporters saying, why is he dancing to this tune? I really hope he isn't. I hope he's actually appealing to a constituency that is ignored, is misunderstood. You're not going to get much copy out of people sitting quietly having a cup of tea and talking about how they'd quite like things to be improved a bit, really, truly, thank you very much. You are going to get copy out of telling some poor woman in Bradfield that she's going to have to wear a burqa next time she wants to pop into Selfridges. You are going to get lots of copy out of saying there's going to be massive violence on the streets this week. They're all at it. It's another massive column in the Mail today by Richard Littlejohn about how we're on the brink. They've had all summer to have Farage riots Mark II. Never happened, and some of them can't stop crying. They're livid. They're heartbroken that there hasn't been more violence on our streets, that more hotels haven't been set fire to. It's any minute now. Any minute now it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And the massive majority of the country would be absolutely repulsed if it did. And yet, oddly, this media that we've managed to create is increasingly complicit in it. It's quite bizarre, and that's what makes it hard to work out who Starmer is appealing to. 0345 60 60973. Thank you, Ned. 10:45 is the time.
James O'Brien on LBC.
49 is the time. It is, I don't know what it is. What's the word for it when a sort of entire population falls under a spell? Not an entire population, but you have examples of it. It can sometimes be a sort of a bug found in a potato. Everyone starts hallucinating, a sort of mass hysteria. It's a bit, except I don't think we're there. So you can read Richard Littlejohn, the only man I think in the British media that's ever been cited at an inquest into the suicide of someone that he'd abused in print, which is quite an achievement when you think about it. You can read him today. He says, millions are quietly fuming with impotent rage. Spent much of his career commenting on British politics from a gated community somewhere in America. So he obviously knows what he's talking about. He's really in touch with ordinary working people. And they're desperate to believe that things are about to kick off. What's the headline? Britain's on the verge of serious unrest over mass migration, which, of course, these people have been whining about for years, finally getting around to admitting that Boris Johnson, their hero, made everything worse. And I don't think that the hysteria is mass, you know. Desperate attempts to claim that these protests outside these former hotels, they still call them hotels. One of the reasons why the Epping case went the way that it went was because it's not technically a hotel, and yet you can open the Daily Mail today and this character is still calling them 4-star hotels. Imagine there's a building at the end of your road that used to be a 4-star hotel, right, and now it's squatted. It's literally squatted. Would you still call it a 4-star hotel? Richard Littlejohn would. It's still a 4-star hotel, that building at the end of the road. No one's actually been in it for 25 years. It's got a tree growing out the roof, but it's still a 4-star hotel. That tramp who's sleeping in the lobby, the former lobby, he's living in a 4-star hotel, that bloke. You see how easy it is to do this kind of baiting, this kind of ignorant poking, this sale of snake oil. It's an absolute piece of cake. But the weird bit that we find ourselves in September is that it didn't happen. Maybe it didn't happen because the justice system dealt so effectively with the thugs that caused all the violence during the Farage riots last summer. Maybe there's another reason, but they can't quite get their head around. These people that never leave their newspaper offices, they can't quite get their head around the idea that there aren't millions of people marching up and down the country. There's about 30 outside a hotel in a town they've never visited, and possibly there's 40 people opposing them on the other side of the road. This thirst, this hunger for violence is really ugly. It's got great precedents in history. You don't need me to remind you what they are. And it's always got cheerleaders in the media, including, of course, the newspaper that was very, very much a supporter of Oswald Mosley in the 1930s and his black shirts. Hurrah for the black shirts was the 1930s equivalent of today's headline saying Britain's on the verge of serious unrest. And there we are. So who is Starmer appealing to? Is he appealing to the non-existent millions of people who are, let's get this word, quietly fuming with impotent rage? Or is he appealing to you? Or is he actually appealing to people who don't exist? Or is Adam right? I'm coming back time and time again to Adam's idea that there is a soft chunk of people who are going to be disgusted by that kind of journalism, disgusted by the scenes outside the hotels, disgusted by a lot of what's going on, but they're just struggling to know where to put their vote at the moment, and Starmer thinks he can reach them by telling people that if you get your application accepted, you can't bring your wife over, or you can't bring your husband or your children. If you've finished your education, then and your leave to remain has therefore expired, then we're going to come after you. Down with graduates. What was Richard Tice doing this week? Special needs children are currently public enemy number one. Down with them and their cars and journeys to school. If we fix that, we just get all the special needs children on pogo sticks, then everyone will be much better off. Everyone will be well. So down with special needs children and down with them and them and them and them. But who is Keir Starmer trying to tickle with this stuff? Jamie says, there are some people living in a police station near me, a former police station, until Tory cuts shut it down, sold it off and turned it into luxury flats. Hey, look, in the world of the Daily Mail, it's still a police station, mate. If it was a police station 10 years ago, then it's got people living in it, it's a police station now. That's the logic of the claim about 4-star hotels. So who is he appealing to? People who believe these lies? Surely if you're appealing to people who believe lies, you tell them the truth. You say, listen, it's not a 4-star hotel. It was once, but the circumstance, £9 a week you get to live on in that 4-star hotel over there. Yeah, it's practically Claridge's. Tunde is in Frinton-on-Sea. A lot of Essex calls today, which is nice. Tunde, what would you like to say?
Yeah, hi there, James. Always great to listen to your logical rants. I love it. I've been listening.
I'll take that. I'll take logical rants. Go on. Go on.
So I really think Keir Starmer is trying to appeal to the whole of the electorate in the UK, regardless of what your voting persuasion is, whether it's Labour, Conservatives, Liberals, or even Reform Now.
Yeah.
I used to vote Labour myself until many years ago. I switched to the Conservatives, and right now I'm not too sure of who to vote for.
Sure.
And living in Frinton-on-Sea, next door to Clacton-on-Sea, where Nigel Farage is, we know who he is there.
is rarely to be seen, but nonetheless, that is his constituency.
So I really feel there's a good chance that in the next election that he can become the leader of the UK. And it's quite worried for me. And
if the consequences weren't, would make Liz Truss look like, I don't know, Margaret Thatcher, it would actually be hilarious. It would be quite a nice thing to just get the popcorn out and watch, but the impact upon less comfortable people than me would be too horrible to contemplate. So I take
and myself as well.
Yes.
Sorry, and myself as well. And the thing is this is what I've got to say. I think in terms of us in this country, I think we've become skeptics because of the way the government have been running the country for decades. And Conservatives, we know, made a big mess, and Labour have come in. And I think, really, if there was anyone to blame, if you don't mind me saying, James, it's your industry. It's the media.
Couldn't agree more. Why would I mind?
The thing is, we go by sensationalism, we go by headlines, and we believe most of the things that we see in the headlines. And unfortunately, we tend to minor in the major and major in the minors. And all the good things that this government, I'm not a big fan of the Kears, I must say, but when you actually do your research, Labour are making a great improvement on what the Conservatives have actually done. You look at anything, public finances, the NHS, housing, immigration, the economy and growth, they are making progress. But the thing is, these things don't get put into the media so much.
They're terrified of Starmer, which is odd because people like me who rated Starmer and hope to rate him again are quite disappointed with how he's performed. Your points about underreporting of positives notwithstanding, it's a little bit hard to understand why they're so terrified of him and even more perhaps Angela Rayner when you sort of think, when you look at the coverage that you're describing.
Well, the thing with kids, if you don't mind me saying, if someone asked a question, I don't know if it was you on your show or previous, about who was, so far in the past few years, who would you say was the best Prime Minister we had? I agree with the guy. Tony Blair was probably the most charming Prime Minister we had.
Gordon Brown.
Of course, Iraq tainted his legacy.
Gordon Brown.
Gordon Brown was a bit of a joker.
Oh, I love Gordon Brown. He's the most unfairly judged prime. In fact, by precisely the media you're talking about. Jeremy Clarkson called him a one-eyed Scottish idiot on television and didn't lose a single column.
The power of the media again.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm supporting your point. So, who does this appeal to? Well, then, okay, so your answer then is twofold, isn't it? Because there are people that might be susceptible to these kind of policies, but they're unlikely to see the rabbit because of the lens through which everything is viewed, being the UK media, which has gone truly bonkers, up to and including all the columnists that are desperate for more violence and riots.
Well, and that's just a problem because this is what sells. This is what sells the media, right? If you have all these headlines that make people a bit agitated. This is what
drives me mad, Tunde. Guess who's got the biggest show on this station?
You?
Yeah. So it's not true. You don't have to do this stuff to get the numbers. It's not the only way to get the clicks. That is, if you'd allow me a moment of immodesty, that's why these clowns hate me so much. Because we prove on this programme every single day that you can deal in what you described as logical rants or facts or the antidote to snake oil, the opposite of poison, not trying to persuade that fella over there to hate that fella over there for the colour of his skin or the country of origin. You can be both popular and correct. And they hate that because in their souls, these people praying for more riots, these people stoking more hatred, these people lying about everything from the Epping planning case right through to the actual numbers of people coming here, they know what they're doing in their souls and they hate it. They hate themselves.
But you speak from a rational perspective.
Right.
I've read your book. I've read your book in the past, How They Broke Britain. Very factual. But the thing is, for everyone listening that you have, there's probably, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people who are not listening to you.
Yeah, of course. Well, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,000 people, to be honest, who are not listening to me. But that's Starmer's job, and that's where we come full circle almost. In that, has he given up on them? Has he given up on telling people the truth? Has he given up on saying that's not a 4-star hotel? That is a building that used to be a hotel that has now got bunk beds where there were once double beds, and you've got more people in a room than you'd be allowed to in a 4-star hotel. Or is he appealing to some people that we haven't pinned down? People like you, maybe. Disaffected Labour voters. And how's he going to do that? By actually buying into some of the storylines, some of the narratives that the roundabout painters have managed to bring closer to the mainstream than ever before. And you know what the real irony is that they all voted for Brexit to reduce immigration, and they didn't pay any attention at all to all the people who told them that was unlikely to work. And they're still not paying attention now.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 3 minutes after 11, and I suppose we should carry on with this conversation, shouldn't we, given that it is not one that you're going to hear anywhere else in the UK media at the moment. But who is Keir Starmer trying to appeal to? Is there a healthy constituency of people that have that dreadful phrase, legitimate concerns, They have been, if there are legitimate concerns that stand up to logical scrutiny, statistical scrutiny, then they've been horribly let down by their own politicians and, of course, those politicians' cheerleaders in the media, painting everybody as someone who wants to turn up outside a hotel and terrorise the people inside, despite the fact they've done absolutely nothing wrong except get here. That's the mad bit about it. I'm going to read you something, because the last caller, Tunde, talked about the importance of research. I'm going to read you something about, and it's from 2020, and it is a helpful, I think, reminder of why some of the quotes, problems, end quotes, that are being endlessly discussed at the moment are in place. And then I'm going to ask you to guess who wrote it. So it's a letter sent to the chief executives of every council in the country during lockdown in March of 2020. However, the decision will mean the supported asylum population will grow as new asylum seekers enter the system and require housing. In order to meet that growth, my officials have asked our accommodation providers to source additional capacity across the United Kingdom. It is likely that this additional capacity will be in the form of sole-use, self-contained facilities. Normally, and although this is not a legislative requirement, we would not allow our providers to procure accommodation within a local authority unless that local authority had agreed in advance that it is appropriate to house asylum seekers in their area, to become a dispersal area. In order to ensure that we have access to as wide a pool of accommodation as possible, I am pausing this requirement and have instead authorised providers to identify any suitable properties that they consider appropriate. Our obligation to house people is a statutory duty. And I'm sure you will understand that in the current crisis, it is essential that we meet our obligations. So who do you think was recognising the role of statutory duty in this issue in March of 2020? Do you want to have a guess? No, Dave, you're close, but no cigar. It wasn't Honest Bob Jenrick. I think he was too busy ordering murals of cartoons to be painted over at processing centres for unaccompanied children in Dover at the time. Oh, lovely bloke. It was the other one. It was Flip, Chris Flip. Chris Flip, as an immigration minister, knew that there was a statutory duty to house people, knew that the policy he introduced was going to massively increase the numbers involved, and knew that local authorities were going to be overridden by central government. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, whether or not that played a part in the Epping case, that the judge who overturned the original decision was so clear-eyed and honest about. Doesn't stop people in my profession lying about what happened in that case, but luckily, if you care, you can find the judge's comments, you can work your way through. Same with Lucy Conley. I'd urge you to read the appeal court's explanations of why she was denied her appeal for a reduced sentence. Not something, again, that will be mentioned by any of the people cheerleading and championing her, but facts have to matter. We're closer to Orwell, I think, than Peter Finch in Network, aren't we, at this moment in proceedings? But that's there it is. So when you hear Chris Philp in the News Bulletin making claims about the situation, you know that he's being, at the very least, disingenuous and, at worst, deeply, deeply dishonest. Because he understands the statutory duty and he understands why the situation that the Labour government inherited was the situation that the Labour government inherited. He gave it to them and then started attacking them for it almost immediately. They all did. Honest Bob, Chris Flip. It's a bit childish, isn't it, to do the old nicknames, but hey-ho, nobody's perfect. And I still don't have an answer to this question. Who is it designed to appeal to? So you hear Dominic's bulletin there. People will be receiving letters and emails. Students who've finished their studies will be receiving letters and emails reminding them that they do not have leave to remain. They've got to go. Down with students. Get them out. People who have successfully applied for asylum. So let's say that they came over in a small boat. They make up between 4 and 5% of the overall figure of immigration into this country. And they have succeeded. And now they're being told they can't bring their wife over or their husband or their child. Does that make you go, good? Good on... Good. And the problem is I phrase it like this and it sounds like I'm judging you, and I'm honestly not. Because, again, research is important. You go back to that statistic that we had to find in the Washington Post, of all places, because no one in the UK media has written it. Care aides to look after the infirm and the elderly. When Boris Johnson tried to cover up the disaster of Brexit by throwing open the doors to people from everywhere else in the world, they wanted 6,000 people to come and work in care and aid, and they ended up with 680,000 people and their families. That is something that Yvette Cooper is, I think, right to address this morning, right to try to fix. But will it work? When you hear in the news that if someone has successfully applied for asylum in this country, they'll now have to wait for years and spend more money or earn more money before they can bring people over, does that make you go, good? Because I can see the sense in that policy. If somebody born here can't bring a partner over unless they're earning over a certain amount of money, then it seems perfectly reasonable that someone not born here can't bring a partner over unless they're earning over a certain amount of money. And if they're fleeing a war zone, then they have well, again, if you get the actual asylum avenues opened up, they could apply for asylum themselves, but they're not. You've got somebody sitting here trying to bring his wife over from the Philippines and somebody sitting over there trying to bring his wife over from Syria. And at the moment, it's the Syrian who has a better chance of doing it than the fella in Broadstairs, which is where Tony is calling from, which is why Broadstairs was in my mind. Tony, what would you like to say?
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. What's on your mind?
So, in answer to your question there as to who they're trying to appeal to, I think it's every man and his dog, isn't it? It's business as usual politics. It's the politics that we've seen since 97, that most of the two main parties have moved to the centre, whether that was centre-left, centre-right. It's become very much the same.
I mean, hey, you've only just started talking, but from where I'm sitting, it's the polar opposite. They've all lurched much further to the right than they were in 1997.
That's it, and that's because the populist, they're trying to fill a void now that's been created because of where they've been and what they've done since 97. You've now got people that are disillusioned with politics. You've got people that are disillusioned with the two main parties. I myself I am that person. Yeah. I'm 34. I've got a good job. My wife's got a good job. I come from a working class background, but I've benefited having a Labour government, I believe, growing up. Yeah. University access, good state services, good healthcare, etc. However, over the course of the last, say, 15 years, I've become very disillusioned with the politics or business as usual politics.
Well, what do you mean by that? Well, just put some flesh on the bones for me. So, I mean, if we go back 15 years, what were you getting cross about or disillusioned with?
Well, I think being 34, 15 years ago, I wasn't adulting. You know, I was.
I just picked that figure because it's the one you said. Yeah. You said 15 years. So, I mean, start whenever you want. What were the seeds of your disillusionment?
I think the most important thing about now is you feel the pinch. Everybody feels the pinch. It doesn't matter whether you're a low to middle income earner or a high. You're feeling the pinch now. Absolutely. And I think people look for reasons to blame. And even if we don't understand the true reasons, even if the real reason's hidden from us, we try to point our finger at something because that's what we're like. We're rational human beings. We're rational.
No, that's irrational.
Sorry, irrational, yes. So when you haven't got an answer, you look to what is different to what you're used to. Yeah. And that's the rise of reform. That's the rise of the far right. Everybody now is sat there looking at it going, look, we've had. It's more a resurrection than a rise, but I take your point. I mean, these forces are always there, and they've had big flash. I mean, people don't realise how close Oswald Mosley and the British Union and fascists were to pulling off a big victory in the 1930s. So it's not new, but the more the pinch is felt, the more susceptible people are to the racist lies. Absolutely, and it comes from a period, though, doesn't it, of people feeling impoverished or people feeling like the cards are stacked against them. Yeah. And that's, again, now the problem that we face. Yeah, and this is why I find Starmer's position so baffling, because he could point at the real reasons. He could point, I mean, he could certainly point, I don't know where you stood on the Brexit question, but you could certainly be pointing out that many of the problems we've got. I had a thing, and I'm picking up on something you said there about seeing difference. Yeah. So when Farage was banging on about Romanians and Poles and white Northern European immigrants, he had a massive problem with them for years, and it worked with the people you're describing for the reasons that you describe. I had a fear that about 4 years ago, I noticed that a lot of the people around my neck of the woods who
were doing jobs that would once have been done by Eastern European people were now being done by people from the subcontinent, from India and Nigeria and other African countries, which meant that if there was a racist undertone to the Brexit vote, which I believe there was, but people often told me there wasn't, replacing lots of white immigrants with lots of dark-skinned immigrants was going to be a recipe for quite a lot of problems, and that is where we are now.
I was a staunch supporter of staying in Europe. I mean, what I do for work relies heavily upon that. I've done construction recruitment for many years.
Well, then you know better than I do.
Absolutely. 80% of what my pay plan was in London areas was, of course, Eastern European labour, flexible labour, hard-working people coming
what Starmer can't do is say, look, I know that you've got a bigger problem with brown people than you did with white people, and that's all the last lot's fault. And that's why today's conversation is so frustrating.
Of course.
That is the reason. And that's what you're talking about. That's why people are susceptible to the snake oil, because they can see difference in a way that they couldn't with the Poles and the Romanians, and now they can.
Absolutely, and it's around them. It's a constant reminder, isn't it? And
I think it is. Well, or if it's not around them, it's all over their social media, and the Daily Mail are telling them that they're actually fuming with impotent rage and about to take up cudgels against a building or a bus shelter by tea time tomorrow.
The fire gets hotter.
So what would you do if you were Starmer? How would you reach you?
He's got to realise why he was elected in the first place. And the reason was, it was the huge discourse against the Conservative government as it was. People were disillusioned with them as a party and what they'd done over the past 14 years, that they sought change, as we always do, and they looked to the most viable candidate, which is Labour, two-party politics. Yeah. That's changed now. The next election is going to be very interesting for that very reason, if things carry on the trajectory that they are on for the next 4 years. But two-party politics tells you that you go for Labour. They're left. Conservative are right. Let's see what they can do. The problem with what Starmer's done now, in my view, is that regardless of whether I'm left or right, Conservative or Labour, is if a Labour government with a huge mandate gets put in power, then they have to do what they were voted to do. And unfortunately, with Labour, he's lost his way. He's trying to. He
wants you to feel less of the pinch in 3.5 years' time. The pinch that you mentioned at the beginning of this call. That's
Absolutely
what he's trying to do. And at the moment, it's not looking good, is it? Here's the thing. I haven't said this yet today, but it's been underpinning an awful lot of my thoughts. The next election is likely to be fought on the pinch you described, Tony, is either the fault of the rich or the fault of the immigrant.
Yes. And it's a lot easier to say the latter, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Indeed it is. And Starmer, unfortunately, is not at the moment, and this little rearrangement of his inner circle that happened yesterday suggests that he might be about to, is not actually going after the people with the money to explain to the people without the money why they're feeling the pinch. He's going after the people living in a former hotel on £9 a week, or at least that's how it feels. Tony, thank you. Great call. It's 11:16.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It's 11:18. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where the question of who is he trying to appeal to, Keir Starmer, is one that I was expecting to have rather more answers to. I wasn't necessarily expecting to like them, but I thought we would have more answers to that question than we currently do. A couple of people think perhaps it's them, but not people prepared to say, actually, yes, I'm delighted to learn that a successful asylum applicant will not be able to bring his wife here. Do you see what I mean? What is he actually appealing to? And if the snake oil is infecting the bloodstream of the population as completely as some media coverage would suggest, why isn't he offering up an antidote? Seem to have waved a bit of a white flag, or not? Phone lines are open. Number you need remains the same. Tony, 2 Tonys in a row, is in Wimbledon. Tony, what would you like to say?
Yes, good morning.
Hello.
I think he's having to appeal to what I feel are people who are very swayed by this, I think, diversionary situation in many ways. This argument seems to be given a lot of sort of power by various elements of the media.
Britain's on the verge of serious unrest over mass migration, yet all Labour can do is rearrange the life jackets on the small boats. So Keir Starmer is trying to appeal to the millions of people that essentially inhabit Richard Littlejohn's imagination.
I think that is partly the situation. situation that is there. I think that what worries me is that this situation is being given so much, is being put so much under the microscope and being taken up so much of the media space, and there's no recognition from those circles within the media as to the fact that we had a government for 14 years that has put the country in the mess that it's in now, are equal as well.
Why don't they say that more? Why doesn't Starmer hit that particular drum more?
I wish he would do, because I follow the numbers very closely over the 14 years of the previous government and some of their sort of, I would say, skullduggery, and that has done serious damage to this country. I don't know if it's a case that Labour can't get these various elements in the media to actually focus upon that, but that is the situation.
He can get himself out there more, can't he? I mean, he could.
I would love to see that.
Is there a Brexit problem as well? Is it, he still seems a little bit frightened of detailing the real extent of the Brexit? Why is he still frightened of that? And who thinks it's gone well?
I think, from what I can see, Nigel Farage said that Brexit didn't work in.
Yeah, he said he was going to leave the country, didn't he? But I suppose that's about as reliable as everything he's ever said.
Yeah. So I think part of the whole problem is that there clearly is an element within the higher sort of order of the country who are quite happy to be sort of pushing this narrative out there. What worries me, like I said, like you say, with Labour and with Keir Starmer, I wish he would perhaps address the nation more directly via media and actually highlight what we went through in the last 14 years.
Yeah, I do too. I do too, actually. A kind of fireside chat or some sort of explanation why we're doing something. And I know you think we should be doing that, but the reason we're not is because it's not true. Here are the facts, here are the figures. And you can have the usual suspects in the media and in politics claiming that it's fake news or claiming that it's not true. But I reckon maybe we've got too much faith in the British people, Tony, and we think that given an opportunity to do better, we would. It may not be the case.
I think ideally we should do. It's good to have that faith, but I think history has shown us what can get out of hand in these situations very easily.
Is it going to burn out?
I hope that it gets countered successfully by some highlighting of the reality. That's
unlikely. John Swinney's very strong up in Scotland on this front. Zack Polanski's just been elected leader of the Green Party, literally while you've been on air. So there are politicians out there, but they're not going to get invited onto Question Time every week like Farage was when he was a no-mark.
This is the problem we have then, because then it clearly is somebody is wanting to see this type of trouble ensue in the country, whereas we've got a bigger challenge as a nation. We've stepped out away from not just the EU, but from the single market.
I wonder if and can't keep talking about these things. So he's having to kind of address problems without being able to talk about what the causes are, which creates the impression that I don't think is unfair, but I wish I did think it was unfair, that he's actually blaming asylum seekers and immigrants for the problems that people are perceiving or feeling. It's extraordinary. There's a mindset issue here as well. You read some of these mad columnists and you realise they feel it. They're not just stoking up anger among their listeners and readers for money. They feel it. They see someone of colour and they feel a little bit uncomfortable unless that person, quotes, knows their place, end quotes. They see someone with a foreign accent, they speak to someone who's clearly come from overseas and they don't like it. They're not yet able to admit that out loud, but they're getting closer every week, and they've been like that for 30 years. It's had that lovely little period of what was known as political correctness when they knew they weren't allowed to say any of the things that they felt in their hearts and in their souls, but they're getting ever closer to being able to say it out loud. And of course Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter has created a place where they can shout it from the rooftops. You can also, of course, write it in the op-ed pages of the Daily Telegraph increasingly. I wonder if it's going to burn out. Can you imagine doing this for 3 more years? Here's another call from someone who's got an answer to solving the small boats problem. Can you do that for another 3 years? Can we get more columns about how everything's about to kick off? When was the word tinderbox first used? Desperate for anger, desperate for more violence. Can we get... I don't know. I honestly don't know. But neither do I know what Starmer is necessarily playing at. Andrew is in Barnsley. Andrew, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello, mate.
I definitely say that I am who he's talking to.
Okay.
Who Starmer's looking with his sort of Enoch-style pronouncements because I voted Brexit Party in 2019 in my constituency. I voted Labour, though, last year. Went back to Labour with all the Tory chaos. And the only thing that's upset me with voting Labour was when he knocked Rwanda off. I thought that's a mistake. That's a silly thing to do. Even though I think Rishi Sunak went for the G because he didn't think he could keep Rwanda going, in that July, when he was going to say it's happening in July and he was going to have the courts against him again. But I've voted Labour, and he mentioned smashing gangs and stuff, but we've had all this continuance of the boats happening, getting worse. Literally knocking Rwanda off was a green light to stoke, get more boats coming.
Well, that's
more of these gangs.
That's the narrative of the people. Well, you tell me. Do you remember how much they spent on it?
Oh, it was millions.
How many millions?
But these things are expensive, James.
Well, I don't.
Australia did it.
Yeah, but they didn't spend They didn't spend £700 million on removing nobody.
But they were going to Ireland. The deterrent was there.
No,
and it would be there.
It really wasn't.
The courts.
I don't know where you get your media from, but £700 million on nothing, mate.
Even a hoax flight would have worked and convinced people not to come and stay in France. You see, and so Keir.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be the one to break it to you, but he's definitely not trying to appeal to you.
Right.
Because if he was, he'd have kept the ludicrous 700 million quid white elephant Rwanda scheme that you think is brilliant in place, wouldn't he?
Well, he's using statements that he thinks, like reducing the family members, they can't come. And
why do you welcome that?
According to...
Why do you welcome that?
Well, I don't particularly.
Oh, so it's not that either.
See a deterrent. I would sooner see him. I think for Keir, the issue of the small boats, politically, it's took on a greater significance than what it actually materially maybe amounts to.
And yet and yet for you, it's the biggest deal of all.
Well, it is.
So you can see both. You can see that it's been massively exaggerated, and that also at the same time you're a victim of that exaggeration. Well,
politically,
that's quite interesting.
See something's going to have to be done about, like for example, the non-integration we have already in the UK, and that's an issue that's going to come more to the surface.
Well, I don't know that it can come much closer to the service. I mean, the person I always think of when people tell me that people and immigrant families haven't integrated, I always think of Sadiq Khan getting elected mayor of our capital city 3 times on the trot. I don't know that you could ever be more integrated than that.
James.
And yet he gets more racist abuse than any other politician in the country.
It's a silly thing about Sadiq Khan, because he's certainly not the example I look at. I'm in Yorkshire.
Yes.
I'm 62 years old.
But he's pretty integrated, right? The mayor of London.
You look at Bradford, and I've been in transport all my life. When I was 20 and I went to Bradford, I didn't see young men walking about with Islamic beards and moustaches.
What's the difference between an Islamic beard and my... What's the difference between an Islamic beard and my beard?
Ethnic clothes.
Ethnic clothes.
An Islamic beard, the young lads look like really smart Iranian stormtroopers. They've got nice, smart moustaches and smart beards and a crew coat, like a Marine.
So we think Keir Starmer is trying to appeal to people that don't like Islamic beards.
Years ago. You saw Asian Pakistani heritage people in Bradford, James, but you didn't see this solid, like, they're so different and they're not going to integrate. And like the older men back in 40 years ago.
And here's Dominic Ellis with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 11:32 and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I'm mad as hell and I can't take it anymore. Did we find that clip from the film? I mean, no one's going to know what I'm talking about unless you've been tuned in religiously. Actually, no, as long as your beard isn't religious. Unless you've been tuned in religiously since 10 o'clock this morning. I'm seeing these two nuggets in contrast to each other, wondering how you and I are going to have conversations about the endless conversations about immigration, because with the greatest love and respect to the last fella, you can only listen to nonsense about beards for a few minutes a year, right? You need to have at some point, or 700 million quid spent on nothing somehow being a good idea or being a successful scheme. Who exactly are the people with legitimate concerns? Clothes and beards are not legitimate concerns. If they make you feel uncomfortable, I sympathise. But how would you feel if your clothes and your beard made somebody else feel uncomfortable? Whose job would it be to change, yours or theirs? How do you do it? How do you continue the conversation when the whole world has gone a little bit mad? And I suggested at 10 o'clock this morning that you've got George Orwell in one corner telling you that the only way you can avoid going mad is to hold on to the truth. And then in the other corner, you've got the character played by Peter Finch in Network, which, if you've not heard this before, this is essentially the moment. I felt a little bit like this after Brexit. The moment where you cannot believe how bonkers everything has gone. I don't know. Which way do you go? Do you go mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore, or do you hang on to the truth in the hope of not going mad? 1976 film, Network. And because we played quite a long clip, I have to be quite grown up about this and tell you that it was produced by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and released by United Artists and directed, of course, by Sidney Lumet. It's a cracking film as well, if you haven't seen it. Peter Finch, I think, one of those amazing, amazing actors. 11:35 is the time. Who is it that Keir Starmer is trying to appeal to? We've got some fairly comprehensive answers to who it isn't, but it's not Enoch Powell fans. So when he found that he had accidentally echoed the words of Enoch Powell, he, I think, very sincerely expressed profound regrets. The problem with someone like Keir Starmer is he can't win. That's why that line in The Guardian today is so powerful about he'll never be able to go far enough to please half of his supporters. I think we just heard from one. And yet he will alienate the other half if he goes half as far as some of his other supporters want him to go. So he echoes Enoch Powell. Some people would have liked that. He's horrified when he realises what he's done, when he has shown the comparison of the two speeches and apologises. But for the people outraged by him echoing Enoch Powell, that makes the original offence even worse. It's pretty easy to avoid. Don't echo Enoch Powell in your speeches and read them before you deliver them, and check certain phrases, certain loaded phrases are not contained within it. But that's a competence question, not an integrity question or a courage question or even a policy question. But when you realise what you've done and you apologise, the people to the left of you are going to be even more upset and outraged, and possibly rightly. So who the hell is he trying to appease? That's not a word we've used yet, but I wonder whether we should now. Who is he trying to appeal to and or appease? And are they appeasable? Daniel's in Dartford. Daniel, what would you like to say?
Hello, James. Hello. Who is Keir Starmer really trying to appeal to? Well, I think the question quite simply are reform voters, right? You ask any single reform voter out there why they're voting reform, and I guarantee you 98% of the time they're going to say to you, small votes. Small votes are a problem. That is where all of their focus is. Now, if you actually talk to, because I've actually tried to speak to, when I see people that have got their St. George's flags out and parading on the streets, like to talk to them and just ask them, why are you really voting reform? What's the problem? Well, all of these small votes are coming in. They're making life harder for everyone. Well, I didn't know if you guys knew this, but you can actually check how many people arrive in small boats online. And this is something that blew my mind. Most of them don't even know this, in fact. Yet you ask them, they're coming in, what are they doing? They're getting phones, they're getting cars, they're getting this, they're getting that. And it just blows my mind completely to see that all of this is just fed from that narrative that's fundamentally
and it's not
media.
True. And I noticed Ryland,
Exactly.
who I'm a big fan of Ryland's, got himself into some hot water while I was on holiday by repeating some of these claims that they are demonstrably untrue. But and so this is another problem, though. It's not a solution because Starmer doesn't know how to deal with those people. He's worried about offending them. And, I guess in a way we should all be worried about. Some people won't have liked the fade out that I did to the lad in Barnsley a minute ago, but the sometimes you've got to be a little bit robust in order to point out the absurdity of certain positions. And Starmer won't do it. He won't come out and say nobody gets a phone. If they do get a phone, they get it's proven necessity, and it hardly ever happens. You can't cure the consequences of these lies if you're not going to tell the truth.
it honestly just genuinely blows my mind. People coming into the country get given. I heard someone the other day on one of your shows was talking about getting PlayStations, getting brand new iPhone 16s. I mean, wow, that's incredible.
No, when I first started here years ago, and I wasn't very exposed to what we'd now describe as far-right rhetoric. So I took a call from someone who was absolutely certain that if you were an immigrant, you got given a free shop. I remember it was probably quite a seminal moment in my development as a so-called radio presenter, because I just wanted proof. There's another one a few years later with a free car. No, so they all get cars. They all get cars. So how does Starmer? I mean, how does Starmer reach people who believe this stuff? I don't think he can he?
I mean, he has to. I think the problem with Starmer, unfortunately, is that it seems like he's really just trying to get as many voters back from Reform into Labour by just posing in any way, shape or form that he can, not really giving any of the actual evidence here, or even just saying the facts, right? Like, I mean, you can see online how many people are coming in through small boats. Why not just stress exactly what it is that they're getting, right? Why not actually just kind of make that clear?
Because it's still too much. Because it's still too much. I mean, you know, £9 a week if you're not getting your meals. 45, I think, sorry, £9 a week if you are getting your meals, 45 if you're not. The figures don't diffuse. Well, maybe they do for some people. So you're suggesting Starmer should be going after the people who are susceptible to the facts. I don't think he can do anything with the people who think everybody gets a free shop. But then really, someone like Ryland's a clever lad, you know, bright as a button and warm and empathetic, and yet that clip I saw of him yesterday was absolutely just regurgitating precisely the sort of nonsense that you've just referred to. So where does he fit into the pie chart of who Keir Starmer is and isn't appealing to? One thing I would mention in the context of Ryland is that I haven't heard anyone calling for him to be sacked from the BBC. I don't quite understand why that would be, because those are very political opinions, right? So I just an observer. I don't think he should be sacked from the BBC, but then again, I think other people perhaps should have been able to state there as well, despite Express. It's almost as if some political opinions are acceptable from BBC presenters for the Daily Mail and other opinions aren't. That would be terribly hypocritical, wouldn't it? Thank you, Daniel. Jill's in Ironbridge, lovely part of the world. Jill, what would you like to say?
Well, I'm not sure that I'm actually going to help the debate, because all I can say is that Keir Starmer is not appealing to me.
Well, that helps. Why not?
Well, I was a member of the Labour Party. I have just recently resigned because, and my context is I work as a volunteer in a centre, a very busy centre for asylum seekers and refugees. And what I believe is that I've spoken to many people, and I feel that the government is fighting an election which is due in 3 years. Instead of having the moral code, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah,
you know better than me. But I think, having spoken to many people, I just wish they had the confidence of a large majority to govern, and then the moral courage to push back with the facts. And I'm sure that, and I don't see that. And I see it really disturbs me when I know some of the facts. I've written to my MP with some of those facts. And it seems to me they have the majority, but they're fighting election. Every time I listen to the news and you hear politicians, they're always talking about what they're going to do when they win the next election, instead of thinking, what are they going to do now? That's what I think.
Yeah, and I can understand why. Can I ask where you're likely to end up?
Well, I'm not going to... I would never vote Conservative or Reform. I probably will end up with the Greens if they have a credible candidate, or continue voting with the Labour Party.
But you've surrendered your membership.
I have.
I think you're onto something here. I mean, are you baffled by what's going on, or just
baffled.
depressed?
No, I'm I'm baffled.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated. I wish people would come and just talk to these people who do come on boats, because people talk as if they dole out a bit of money, hop on a boat and bob across the channel, and yet we know that's not true. I know that's not true. There was a caller, a very powerful caller on, I think, Sheila Fogarty's programme, who was a fisherman from Kent, who was fantastic, who had talked to these people. And that's what I want to see out there, but I'm not seeing it. And a lot of my friends and the people who have previously supported the Labour Party, I think, are feeling the same way, that they're not appealing to us. And there's a big swathe, I think you said at the beginning, that there is a swathe of people out there who we should be appealing to. And we want to see more confidence.
The problem is that people like you are never going to go the other way, are you? You're never... I mean, no. You might leave Labour. He's kind of betting that you won't. That he won't lose your vote because the alternatives are so hideous. But he needs to draw more people to his flag than he currently has in the polls. And in order to do that, he has to, I think, appeal to or appease people who don't really care about the realities that you know and understand. They just think there are too many people in those spaces, in those places.
Yes. Yes, I'm not going to go the other way, and yes, you're right. Yeah. And there are many...
And do you have any sympathy for that? I mean, I know that you believe that if they knew what you knew, they'd be a lot nicer about the issue and a lot less persuaded that this is a terrible problem. But, you know, this figure here, 6,000 people that Boris Johnson's government intended to bring here under a scheme to bring in care workers, and they ended up with 680,000 carers and their families. I think someone who balks at that or gulps at that number isn't a sort of Enoch Powell fan, are they?
No, but it's the distinction, isn't it? The distinction, and being very clear about what the definitions are.
Yeah,
and again, everything...
Yeah. And that's a failure of media again, isn't it?
It's all conflated, that the economic migration and asylum seeking and refugees and people who get whatever their leave to remain are all conflated.
And all a problem.
One banner.
And all a problem.
Yes. Yes.
And that's where these columnists essentially make their money, isn't it? In just sort of essentially saying, I hate foreigners, but never actually saying I hate foreigners. Except, of course, the really rich ones.
Yes.
There we are. Jill, thank you. 11:46 is the time. Speaking of the Greens, we will find out a little bit more about the new fella that they have elected as leader in, I mean, genuinely landslide circumstances. And by way of a little hook and tease, how many MPs do you think the Greens have? I do this for a living, as you may have noticed. And I'm a little bit embarrassed to tell you, I got the answer to this question wrong earlier this morning. How many Green MPs do you think there currently are? I'll tell you after this.
James O'Brien on LBC.
minutes to 12 is the time. Fans of the looks below the bonnet may be interested to know this conversation has got bigger and bigger and bigger as the morning has progressed. Oddly, maybe I set it up wrong, but I struggle to get a line into the building now. Which wasn't the case at 10:30. It was the case about 11:15. Sometimes things are slow starters. Sometimes they go off like rockets and then fizzle out quite quickly. I never know what's going to happen. It's why I love coming to work every day. So we could carry on the conversation about what is going on, what Keir Starmer is doing, who he's trying to appeal to. We could bring in a little side order of what we're about to discuss now, which is the role that a apparently resurgent Green Party could play in UK politics. But look me in the eye and tell me if you knew there were 4 Green members of Parliament, members of Westminster, 4 Green MPs. Same number as Farage's outfit. It's so hard to keep up. The one that got locked away for battering his ex-girlfriend, he's no longer... Is he? He's no longer... I know that battering your girlfriend, being locked up for battering your ex-girlfriend was not enough to get you thrown out of the party that is here to protect British women and children. Oh, how does that work? How can you be the party that never shuts up about protecting British women and children if you're also the party that brought into Westminster a man who'd been banged up for battering his ex-girlfriend? Oh, he was white, was he? Oh, I see. And he'd actually committed that crime, had he? As opposed to just being pointed at and abused. Oh, I see. And the other one as well, the weird one who... He's not there. Rupert Bear? He's not there either. So it's 4. So they've got the same number. Well, who here could claim that the Greens get less coverage than Reform? Even I know the opinion polls are pertinent, but maybe they'll start getting more coverage now because they got a new leader. And Aggie Chambre, LBC's political correspondent, is at the community centre in Waterloo, where this election has just been concluded. What happened, Aggie?
I am indeed. I've just stepped out of the packed room and actually it is still going on. So if you hear some cheers behind me, that is why. So Zack Polanksi, the self-proclaimed eco-populist, has won with an astonishing 20,411 votes to the opposing people who stood, which was Adrian Ramsey, who is the incumbent leader, and Aggie Chambre. They were both MPs. They got 3,705 votes. So a massive landslide of a victory for Zack Polanski. He was tipped to win, but I don't think quite by that scale. So he's actually not an MP. He's been the deputy leader since 2022. He's currently a member of the London Assembly, but not an MP. This leadership contest was triggered back in May when Carla Denyer, who was the leader, announced she would step down as co-leader with Adrian Ramsey. I think it's fair to say, James, it's been a reasonably fractious contest. Even as the event started, the CEO of the Green Party referred to it as a high-tempo contest, talking about heated debates on social media and in the press. So Zack Polanski, as I said, he's seen as this eco-populist. He's been pretty combative, some say mimicking the kind of Nigel Farage style of communicating, and seen as this kind of very bold communicator. And actually that was one of the things that came up in the leadership contest when Adrian Ramsey and Aggie Chambre said they acknowledged he was a good communicator. He's a former actor, but they were concerned with his overtly left-wing approach and that it could put off moderate voters. So, as I say, he was announced as leader and gave this speech.
People in this country are exhausted. They are tired. They are sick of working long hours and never feeling secure. They see water companies pumping sewage into our waters and charging us extra for the privilege. And they see how broken the old two-party system is. And we know this political space has been ripe for charlatans like Nigel Farage and Reform. Millionaires who are pretending to serve working class communities, but are actually backed by the same billionaires who are destroying our democracies, our communities, and our planet. So it is an absolute moral responsibility in this moment for the Green Party to step up with the bold politics that I know that we have, to say to people that we can and we will lower your bills. We will nationalise the water companies. We will hold this Labour government to account.
Now, he went on to say, too, if you're feeling politically homeless, if you're feeling despair, there is a political home for you in 2026. He also said they want to see Green people elected to the Senedd in Wales. So I think what he is trying to do is basically fill, or say that they can fill, the political void that some on the left of the Labour Party have been feeling. And he wants to appeal to more voters by being deeply embedded in communities. But it's going to be really interesting, James, to see how this works with, for example, your party, as it is currently called, Jeremy Corbyn's and Zara Sultana's new outfit, which actually in the Q&A afterwards, he didn't rule out doing some sort of deal with, but said it was just too early at the moment to say.
Where did he come from? Because, some people are surprised to learn that the Green Party currently has 4 MPs, and of course he's not one of them. So what is his platform, as it were, Aggie? What explains his acceleration past people who do have seats in the House of Commons?
So he has been deputy leader since 2022. He's been a member of the London Assembly, and he's been pretty active as part of the London Assembly. He's been very kind of outspoken on where the direction of travel of the Green Party is and kind of filling that space on the left of politics. But as I say, he's also, before he was involved in politics at all, he was an actor. And I think this is part of why he is such a good communicator. But actually, it's really interesting because he's not an MP. So how on earth is that going to work in terms terms of Westminster politics? Well, there's going to be another contest within those 4 MPs of who's actually going to kind of lead and decide where they go in terms of Westminster. I think he will stand at the next general election, possibly in Diane Abbott's seat. If she's not allowed to stand for Labour, then potentially that's somewhere that he might stand. So I think he is hoping that he will become an MP. But it's also without this strategy that's been employed by Adrian Ramsey and Carla Denyer, could they lose those seats that they won in the last election? If they doubled up with your party and did some sort of deal with them, they might win different seats, and that would be good news for potentially Reform and the Conservatives. But this could genuinely shift things. Perhaps not that much, but it could shift things.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, the idea that the Green Party was about to become a major political force, and here we are again, wondering whether the Green Party is about to become a major political force. And yeah, obviously having 4 MPs, I think 7 members of the Scottish Parliament, and some in the Senate as well in Wales, it is a major political force, but you know what I mean in terms of discourse. We shall see. Aggie, thank you. He is also, and I'm only going to mention this once, some people I think will mention it a lot, but he's going to be haunted by a story that I think Aggie was right not to refer to. But he did tell a journalist from the Sun newspaper that he could hypnotise her to make her boobs bigger. And I'm all for a little bit of jollity in public life, but I would have thought that would be a rather hard millstone to shrug. I don't know. What do you think? I'm not making that up, by the way. It's not some sort of elaborate practical joke. It was, to my embarrassment, one of the first things that I learned about him, because I kind of noticed the headline in a way that perhaps I wouldn't have noticed a headline talking about net zero or electric cars. So he did not only work as an actor, he also plied his trade as a hypnotherapist and offered a service to women who were keen to, in the language of tabloid newspapers, enhance their embonpoint. Is that how you pronounce the word, Keith? I think it is. It's coming up to 12 noon. So I got a few choices now. I like this conversation, and it's far from over, about what exactly Keir Starmer is playing at. 0345 60 60973 would be the number you need to call if we decide to continue with that. We could perhaps find a way to talk about the Greens now that they have a new leader. And I'm also struck by news that Scotland is set once again to be the country with the most drug deaths per capita in the whole of Europe, and I don't know why. So, shall I let you decide? Or shall I consult my colleagues during the news headlines and let you know the decision afterwards? Or maybe a combination of the two. Either way, it's 12 minutes.
James O'Brien on LBC.
So, 3 minutes after 12 is the time. I can't really sit here and sneer about or complain about the imbalancing coverage between the sort of far-right party and the Green Party with and then contribute to it myself. So let's talk about the Green Party. 20% of voters would consider voting for them. First past the post, huge obstacle to small parties, unless they're poised essentially to replace an old party. So, you know, with the Conservatives essentially in free fall, there is an opportunity for right-wing parties to move into the vacuum created. The Liberal Democrats had a really good result at the last election, and I think they're still punching. Whether or not the Greens in this country can offer up an alternative, it remains to be seen. But I quite like the cut of this lad's jib. You know what happens, don't you? You know what the curse of O'Brien is. It's not just right-wing politicians that it applies to. I say something warm or nice about a politician, and the next thing you know, he turns out to have got all sorts of skeletons in his closet, or he starts ordering that murals get put. I don't think I ever said anything positive about Honest Bob Jenrick. But you take my point. The curse of O'Brien is that I strain to see the best in people, and when I say something warm or positive about a serving politician, the next thing you know is that they either insert their foot very squarely into their mouth, or they disgrace themselves in some other ways. But we'll have another listen to that clip. We'll have another listen to Zack Polanski before 1:15. And I mean, how do you want to do this? Because if I say, why aren't the Greens a bigger force in UK politics, you could just shout first past the post at me down the phone 200 times. And it wouldn't be a particularly edifying or illuminating experience. Another split on the left is not necessarily a good idea. I can think of at least 5 constituencies now, or 5 groupings now, that lend themselves to leftish positions. This is sort of the left outside the Labour Party. I have, in fact, a rather splendid commentator who I used to work with 100 years ago and who I follow assiduously on Blue Sky, Gabriel Milland, has identified 5 poles now outside the Labour Party. You've got the Red Greens, which is kind of like the very leftish Green faction that Zack Polanski represents. Then you've got the Liberal Democrat style Greens who have MPs. A sort of crossover there. Gabriel describes them as mango, which is orange and green mixed together, isn't it? It's green. It's orange on the inside, green on the outside. It needs to be the other way around. It's like a reverse mango. And then you've got the two people, Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana. I'm not quite sure. Are they going to lead it together, or are they going to share, or maybe job share? Those two personal followings are not necessarily the same people. And then you've got what he describes as the communalists. And as is always the case on the left, the things that they disagree about will be much, much, much more important than the things that they agree about. But I have a problem. I got 99 problems, but I've got a problem. And my problem is actually quite embarrassing. It's not medical, don't worry. But I catch myself sometimes reacting to things in a way that I am a little bit ashamed of. If you listened to this programme a million years ago, then you would know that I used to go all in on what I would loosely describe as lazy stereotyping of certain groups. I was awful. And I, to my eternal shame, actually, I'm awful about obese people. Really, really vile and deeply unhelpful. And in what passes for a defence, I would occasionally think that I would always think it was funny, actually. And it's not a defence at all. It was bullying. It was horrible. And I similarly used to think that vegetarians provided great sport. All comedy, I mean, it's a little thing about all comedy punching down. It doesn't necessarily have to punch down, but it's a heck of a lot easier to be, quotes, funny, end quotes, if you've got a target, isn't it? And yet, where does that lead? It leads to Jeremy Clarkson calling Gordon Brown a one-eyed Scottish idiot on Australian television. So once you get into the business of punching down, where does it end? And the other area in which, so with vegetarians and pet lovers, God, it was an endless list of people about whom I used to be unnecessarily rude. But I did, I'm afraid, go down the sort of muesli munching, clog wearing, knitting their own armpit hair into woolly hat type depiction of green people, as in, not green people. So that's a medical condition, but people of a green persuasion, the green part. And I just caught myself doing it again. So here's the problem, and here's the phone-in, actually, would you believe? I mean, part of it's just going to be, what do you think of them? But what are the problems that they have? In other European countries, the Greens are major forces, major political forces now. And they offer an alternative to centrism or to neo-capitalism. They offer an alternative to a lot of mainstream political movements. There are 72 Liberal Democrat MPs? And that's a big number. They could overtake the Tories I mean, goodness knows what's going to happen at the next election. But will the Greens become major players? And I want to know what it would take for the Greens to become major players. 0345 6060 973. You're going to know a little bit more about this issue perhaps than I am, because it's your party. I'm not talking to everybody now. I'm talking to some people that will be most likely to call in. You're going to be able to tell me what do the Greens offer that other parties don't? Because the question of whether or not they're likely to become a more powerful electoral force is moot for the time being. What I want to know is what they offer. What do you like about them? What do they do? And you can either talk about the party broadly, or you can talk about the new leader, Zack Polanski, specifically. What is the offer that has attracted you? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need? And I really want to know, because I don't think we can start assembling an answer to the second question, which is about the likelihood of them becoming a major political force, or what it would take for them to become a major political force, without getting a slightly clearer picture on where they are now. And I do want, if I can't find a way into it at the moment, but that thing I just felt, do you feel it too? That slightly mocking response to a green... I mean, because we're all victims of conditioning. We're all victims of our environment. We've all grown up in a media or a public discourse where being green... Remember when Prince Charles was mocked for his views, and everyone would focus on the fact that he talked to plants or things like that? Prince Charles has turned out to have been well ahead of the curve. King Charles, to you, actually, Keith. King Charles has turned out to be well ahead of the curve. And his interest in what we would call green issues was both prescient and powerful. And yet, I belong to, I don't know, a generation or a world view that used to take the mickey out of him. And I bought into the idea that it was all a little bit ridiculous. It clearly wasn't. I understand the world a little better now, and the amount of influence that the oil and fossil fuel industry have bought over the media probably explains, in part, the demonisation of green positions, green politicians and green personalities. I get that a lot better than I did now. I get it a lot better than before I saw the play Kyoto in London earlier this year, which I could not recommend more highly. The rich will always encourage the poor to hold opinions that are damaging to them, because they will make the rich richer. So there it is. I get that. I'm a part of the reason why I feel that negativeness when you say green is shamefully evidence of me having been successfully manipulated by the fossil fuels propaganda machine. But I don't know that we can get into that today. How do you overcome that? Yeah, we could do that. How do you overcome it? So, question number one, what do they offer you that no other party currently offers? 0345 6060 973. Question number two, if, like me, or if you recognise what I describe, okay, this slightly pathetic knee-jerk response. So you say green, I say muesli, right? I don't like being that person. It's pathetic, frankly. But change is not easy. How do you overcome that from either end of the telescope? So how do the Greens overcome those negative knee-jerk reactions? 0345 6060 973. And if you are the receptacle of those negative knee-jerk reactions, how do you overcome them? Maybe that's too early to ask that question. Maybe the Greens now, as a rising political force, will have to encourage that process, but it hasn't happened yet. So you used to hear the word green and you would hear muesli munching, armpit hair knitting, all those hilarious phrases and depictions that a certain type of commentator deploys. And you don't anymore. Why not? How did you get past the negative stereotypes to recognise the importance and the appeal of the Green Party? 0345 6060 973. And what is the appeal of the Green Party? Or, if you know enough about the matter, and I'm afraid I don't, Zack Polanski himself. Get this up and running, especially if you've never phoned me before. This is an invitation to people who feel unrepresented in the UK media, who don't understand why we spend hours essentially tickling the toes of some hideous politicians and completely ignoring the ones that you like. So let's listen to a minute of Zack Polanski, the new leader of the Green Party, and then let's get stuck into those questions. What do they offer that other parties don't? And how do you get past the negative knee-jerk reaction to green politics that has been very carefully inculcated and cultivated among the British population for the best part of 50 years. So here, ladies and gentlemen, here is the new leader of the Green Party, Zack Polanski.
People in this country are exhausted. They are tired. They are sick of working long hours and never feeling secure. They see water companies pumping sewage into our waters and charging us extra for the privilege. And they see how broken the old two-party system is. And we know this political space has been ripe for charlatans like Nigel Farage and reform. Millionaires who are pretending to serve working class communities, but are actually backed by the same billionaires who are destroying our democracies, our communities, and our planet. So it is an absolute moral responsibility in this moment for the Green Party to step up with the bold politics that I know that we have, to say to people that we can and we will lower your bills. We will nationalise the water companies. We will hold this Labour government to account.
So what do they stand for and why do you like them? 0345 6060 973.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Of course, it may not all be positive. A couple of comments coming in referencing attitudes towards NATO and Russia. Listen, I don't know. I'm coming at this quite cold. It might be a failing on my part professionally. I should probably know more about the Greens, but happily I can ask you and you can tell me. So what are they offering that other parties are not? A positive or negative, of course. Why do you not welcome the possibility of a Green resurgence? And listen, I know I sometimes overload you with questions. It's because I'm thinking out loud usually. But why do they not have? Why has this country not reflected other? Is it just the electoral system, or are there other reasons why we have been less enamoured, less enthusiastic about Green parties, the Green Party, than other comparable electorates and economies? Rob's in Bromyard in Herefordshire. There's a Green MP in Herefordshire, I think.
Yes, she's my MP.
Okay,
Aggie Chambre.
That's the one. Yes. How did that happen? Because I'm so conscious of the knee jerk, Rob. You're going to have to help me out. So Brighton had a Green MP, and I remember thinking, yeah, that makes sense because Brighton is, very forward thinking, and a lot of people have moved there of a progressive outlook. I know Herefordshire quite well. I grew up in Worcestershire. How did Herefordshire end up with a Green MP?
Well, I think it's because this constituency is very rural, very agricultural.
Yeah.
And, quite a lot of what's going on in the green space does affect those rural communities pretty hard or more significantly.
It's part of an answer, but there's loads of rural constituencies in the country and not many with Green MPs.
Now, this is one of those constituencies that was listed as a credible alternative to the Conservative MP that have been here with a massive majority for a long time.
Right.
So I think Ellie, she did a couple of things. She worked damn hard to get round this constituency and speak to people.
Yeah.
Now, I spoke to her. I've done postgraduate environmental science, so I had the opportunity to test her, and she knows her stuff.
Oh, okay.
She impressed me hugely. Now, I would have voted for her anyway because she was the credible alternative to the Conservative Party. But what I really like about her is she knows her stuff.
That'll never catch on.
As I said to your producer, one of the things that I love about the Green Party is that they are, at the moment, a little island of expertise. There's an awful lot of people in Westminster who know nothing about environmental science, but have got a lot to say about it.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's a lot of people in my line of work as well, but I'm not one of them because I don't have a lot to say about it. But I am, unfortunately, part of the people who know next to nothing about it. So what is it that they represent that you consider not only to be attractive, but also downright important?
Well, I think for anybody who's worked in the field, I used to be a field biologist, so anybody who's worked in the field can see that climate change is coming and it's coming in hard. Things are changing, and we need to get our act together if we're going to get through all of what's coming down the line. More flooding, more extreme weather. We need people in Westminster to be a beacon of expertise. Draw these people in and use them to come up with credible answers, not just stuff that seems to look good. Because I'm hoping that they can do a deal with the Lib Dems.
Go on.
To get together at the next election to give both the Conservatives and Labour a run for their money.
I think part of my problem, and I think I'm allowed to treat this as one of the topics where I will be the lens at which we look through everything, because I'm drawn to what I just heard Zack Polanski say. I'm drawn to what you say, and I'm deeply impressed by your depiction of Ellie Chambre. But I think my historic problem with the Green Party would be that they're clearly not single issue, but that issue can be co-opted by other parties. So as soon as what do they offer that can't be contained within within the brief or the portfolio of a minister in a more traditional party? Do you think it might be an electoral hindrance to be perceived as single issue?
Yeah, I do, because I think where they've got to widen their net out, and what Ellie was very good at doing was talking about issues that are connected to the environment.
Because Ed Miliband is strong on net zero, and oddly, people forget this. Boris Johnson was quite strong on net zero. You don't have to be in the Green Party to recognise the urgency of the climate crisis.
No, but you need to be in the Green Party with expertise to actually do something about it.
Do you really believe that?
Well, Boris Johnson might have talked a good game, but he didn't do a lot of good things.
No, that's true. And you think the Greens would? They'd kind of have to, wouldn't they, given that they've got so much hanging on it. Why do you think they have not been a more... I mean, it's a bit of an unfair question, this, given that they've got the same number as MPs as Farage's outfit. But compared to other European countries, what do the Greens need to do to move up a gear, to move into the next stage of their political development?
I think, unfortunately, this comes back to the communications game once again. I think they've got to be... the environmental pill is such an enormous topic to try and swallow.
Yes.
It's very difficult for people to get their head around it. And, having experts speak about stuff sometimes doesn't necessarily help.
Okay. No, I hear you.
That might be just the kind of guy they need, somebody who can communicate.
I think he's further to the left than Ellie Chowns, and that might alienate some of the voters in a constituency like yours. In fact, a few texters are suggesting that it is essentially a socialist platform that he is offering to the left of Keir Starmer, which is not necessarily going to go down well with the Hunter Welly brigade, who were tempted by Ellie Chowns last time round.
Yeah, I'm not a Hunter Welly brigade guy, but that's why
Dunlop all the way, Rob. Dunlop all the way.
Hopefully, that's why I suggested some sort of deal, whether it was a cooperation deal with the Lib Dems, might just actually tip the balance for both parties.
Yeah,
I have no inside track, but I think that they are natural cousins to each other.
Yeah, no, these are interesting times, and I mean, you may have wanted your woman to lead the party, but Zack Polanski seems to be a breath of fresh air at the moment.
I mean, I would have liked Ellie to have led the party, because I've met her. I've had the opportunity to grill her.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I was impressed. Zack sounds pretty good. I quite like the clips that I've heard.
Yeah, same. I mean, it's nice to have a conversation about politics that is broadly warm and positive. It'll never last, but that's the curse, isn't it, of going into public life. And that question remains. That's a perfect first answer from Rob. What do they offer? What do you like about them? And if you want to get a bit broader, why have they failed to kick on? Actually, let's phrase it more positively. What do they need to do to kick on to the next level? Nick's in Dudley. It's about staying in the Midlands. Nick's in Dudley. Nick, what would you like to say?
Afternoon, James.
Hello.
I voted Labour last time around, and I'm increasingly frustrated with them. Not on the immigration front, as you spoke about in the last hour or so.
Yes.
More on all the other stuff. It's like, come on, we've elected a left. Literally everything else. Get on with it, guys. And I do genuinely think there's a lot of. I do take them at face value when they say we are putting stuff in place in the background, and unfortunately, a lot of the stuff is there's no silver bullet where you can just solve things by, signing a Donald Trump style executive order. It's stuff that we're not going to see the benefit for until the end of this Parliament, if we're lucky. And I think that's the problem they've got. But I'm getting frustrated with the fact they are only going down the immigration route. And I'd like to look at...
It's a bit chicken and egg, that, isn't it? Because, I mean, I'm not here to defend them on every front, although I think I'd take a lot of persuading that they're not still the least bad available option. But one of them was doing the stuff yesterday about the childcare money going out to everyone earning under 100 grand. And we'll get stuck into that story a little more when we know a bit more about it, when it's had a bit longer to percolate through the population. But it was actually asked by someone on breakfast television why are you talking about this? He'd been invited onto the programme to talk about that. And I say, why are you talking about this when everyone wants to talk about immigration? So I don't know that it's Labour's fault that they are currently being perceived as talking only about that one issue. I'm sure they would rather talk about other issues. It's just that no one is letting them. And the Greens don't have a magical solution to that media-created problem, do they?
No, the media, they don't. I take your point, but even Labour's own ability to get stuff out on social media, a lot of it is still immigration-driven. Anyway, sorry, the Greens. I've had my head turned as such, and I'm interested because they were talking about wealth tax, they were talking about inequality and to Nick Boris Johnson's term, levelling up, I suppose, for a better term, a better term, and the inequality there. I think the problem they have, and they will have, is they will, for the foreseeable, be seen as the environmentalist left-wing loons. I think actually what they probably need to do is say, go almost ditch the environment. This is going to sound silly. Ditch the environmentalism as the main point and have it come as consequence. So I know, I heard the Zack Polanksi's speech where he's saying we're going to renationalise water companies. Brilliant. We're going to take, stop them overcharging you on your bills. Well, that's an economic thing, if nothing else. That's going to stop. That's going to put money in people's pockets. That's going to stop them being overcharged. There is obviously. So what the worst?
So I think you're right. I don't think this is silly at all. If he'd made a speech about crested newts and natterjack toads, we'd all be running in the opposite direction at 100 miles an hour, rightly or wrongly. But in fact, not dissimilar to the question I was asking Rob about the potential dangers of being single issue. They just need to make sure that they're not. They just need to make sure that they're not. And that speech was a good start. I like it. I mean, what I don't know at the moment, and there's no point messaging me, asking me why I'm not talking about something on a phone-in show. If you want me to talk about it on a phone-in show, you can blooming well phone me and talk about it to me. I don't know what their position is on NATO or on Russia. So if you think you do, then help me out and tell me why some of these warm receptions are perhaps a tad premature. It's at 12:29. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. 4 MPs, and it would seem a young, charismatic leader with very good communication skills. I mean, when was the last time you said that about a party that wasn't major? Farage, I suppose, has got good communication skills, and some people find him charismatic, but he's never really seemed young. Even when he was young, I don't imagine he seemed young. So there is a sort of space in British politics. The problem then becomes, as the commentator I referred you to a moment ago, Gabriel Millan, points out, is that they historically, these the left outside the Labour Party and even the left inside the Labour Party is haunted by an obsession with what people disagree about as opposed to the importance of what people do agree with. So where do they fit into the political future of this country? There's a lot going on here. And as the conversation continues, it might be because the first 2 callers have been such lovely chaps, there's a little bit of me that's thinking maybe I'm ready for a change. Maybe I'd like to... I vote according to my constituency MP usually, but if I wasn't doing that, if you did actually cast a vote at a national level, you'd be thinking, well, they've not really done what I was hoping. They've not gone that far. I don't, I'm afraid, have much faith in some of the other new parties popping up because of some of the personalities involved. Maybe it's time to give the Greens a chance. And as Kermit the Frog famously observed, it's not easy being green. Is it getting easier? Here's Amelia Cox with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
33 minutes after 12. Tom in Somerset has sent a text that I'm afraid just gave me... I don't think it's fair. I'll share it with you in a moment, but it could be a little bit close to the bone. So just be aware that that's on the way. We're talking about the Green Party. They've got a new leader, Zack Polanksi. I talked about the curse of O'Brien. I also talked about the difficulty of people on the left of politics outside the Labour Party, the difficulty they have historically in focusing on what they agree with each other as opposed to what they disagree with. It's sort of factionalism. It's where the Judean People's Front of Judea jokes come from. You know, splitters! I'm pretty sure that's a depiction of the left rather than the right. And I've got some evidence from Ian Dale's show a few weeks ago of potential problems already on the horizon for the new leader of the Green Party. But I want to do 2 things. I want to know more about them, and I really want to excise this very lazy knee-jerk reaction I caught myself having earlier. I was a bit embarrassed to have it, actually. I really like people like Sean Berry and Jenny Jones and Caroline Lucas. I know some Green politicians. I'll tell you a story about embarrassing myself in front of Jenny Jones one day, if you're very, very good. But if I haven't told you already. But I'd still caught myself then when I said at 12 o'clock to the producer, should we do an hour on the Greens? I still felt inside a little bit of a muesli button being put. Oh, yes, to take the mickey. No. Got to get past that. I need to get past that. I wonder how you get past it, how we get past it. And what do they offer that other parties don't? James is in Stowmarket. James, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello, James.
I think you'd agree all the best people are called James.
There's been a lot of Jameses on the show this week. I think maybe second only to the Tonys, but hey, it's early days. It's early days. Go on, what made you pick up the phone?
All the better for it. So, James, I'm a Green Party member and I'm a Green Party councillor, and I sort of sit in the administration, which is the only sort of fully Green Party run administration in the whole of the UK, which is in Mid Suffolk.
Is it really? Can I ask why?
Yeah.
How did that? Because I asked the fellow in Herefordshire. I don't know whether it's part of my laziness that I can see how Brighton ended up with a Green MP, but how did Stowmarket end up with a Green council?
Because they voted sensibly and they voted in the most amount of councillors. No,
that's not fair. That's not an opinion. It's counting. I wanted an opinion. And what did you do right that other Green council candidates haven't done?
We've been building for a long time.
Right.
We've had some really great councillors over the last 20 years. We've certainly been building. And I think people saw an alternative. We'd certainly been in Suffolk Conservative for a long time.
Yeah.
People were kind of very disillusioned and disappointed. I think they wanted people that were sort of community champions, and I feel that's what we are. If you look at what we do, the councillors on the weekend, because we're all good friends of each other. I'm not sure the other parties can actually say that they actually socialise with the people they sit with on the council. But we do. We're all friends, and we all kind of get together and we do a lot of community work on the weekends in our spare time.
So you think? I mean, there'll be councillors listening from other parties in other parts of the country who would reject that little bit of your analysis, that they're great mates and they do stuff together as well. But you are trying to describe something different, aren't you? A sense of mission. Would that be it? A sense of shared mission? And unfortunately, yeah. Go on.
So look, we're a broad church, James. We are all completely different people. I myself was actually in the military, in the army for 22 years. I'm one of the very rare sort of ex-military Green Party sort of members. On our council, which is 34 seats, 23 of them have got Green councillors in, which is huge. We've got a huge majority.
You must have played an amazing ground game.
Yeah, we have got. This is the thing. We've got so many supporters locally that are willing to go out and knock on doors and deliver leaflets because people believe in us. They believe in the movement. We're a really broad church. We've got me as military. We've got a couple of farmers. We've got 3 doctors. We've got people that are also local authority workers themselves. So they know the council inside out. We've got ex-school teachers and current school teachers. It's so broad.
I like it, and I like your enthusiasm. I'm not sure you're giving me much that doesn't apply to other parties, except a sense of energy. Do you mind if I rain on your parade?
Please.
Because this idea of unity and loveliness and friendship doesn't necessarily stand up to scrutiny when you listen to the leadership debate that Ian Dale hosted on this radio programme about a month ago, during which Adrian Ramsey, who you will know is the Green MP for Waveney Valley, well, I'm not going to spoil it for you. I think Ian asked him whether or not he liked Zack Polanski.
Good grief, are these two the best they have? Their contempt and dislike for each other is barely contained. I don't think you've won her over, either of them.
I'm afraid we might not have done, Deborah.
Do you like him?
We've worked together on all sorts of things.
Do you like him, yes or no?
I've enjoyed working with Zack over the last few years, of course.
I really like Adrian, so that does hurt.
I mean, that's quite something. You can't
I disagree with Adrian on lots of things, but I like him.
You like Zack Polanski.
Look, Zack is a valued colleague, absolutely.
But you don't like him.
I like working with Zack, absolutely.
Well, you either like him or you don't like him.
Well,
You're making it quite clear.
No, I'm saying that I want us to have an effective Green Party. We're debating. This is a professional debate, as Zack has just said. That's the important thing. And
but if you ask me, do I like Zack? I'll say yes. If you ask me, do I like you? I'll say yes.
Absolutely. I've worked with Zack effectively. I like working with Zack. I like Zack. Absolutely. I don't understand what the issue is here.
We got there in the end. Do you like Adrian?
I really like Adrian. There's lots we disagree on, and I think he's wrong on a lot of the things he's saying tonight. But do I think he's a good person? Do I like him? Absolutely.
They're not sounding that unified now, James.
Well, I mean, wouldn't the world be a boring place if everyone got on?
Get him in the cabinet. Get this man in the cabinet now. That's exactly the right response. Exactly that. But yeah, I mean, it is going to be one of those journeys, isn't it? The more prominence you achieve, the more power you achieve, the more scrutiny you invite, hopefully, because you want the media to start recognising that there are politicians in this country that aren't all sailing under the Jolly Nigel. James, thank you. Saunders is in Billericay. Saunders, what would you like to say?
It's actually your comment about catching yourself thinking of Green Party people in a certain way that inspired me to call, because I think that's so common. It's such a common thought to have. I think that is probably one of the Green Party's biggest issues, is that predisposition or prejudgment that exists with the party. Really, politically, that's not what they're all about anymore. They're a bit much more than that. What they cover obviously goes to much greater lengths than the idea that some people might just chain a word like tree hugging to.
I'm so glad you recognise
that.
I'm so glad that you recognise that. I was worried that I wasn't articulating it properly, but it's true, isn't it? That you do tree hugging, you think of Swampy. You might be too young to remember Swampy. You think of... would you believe I'm actually eating muesli during today's programme? I started doing... I swear to God, I've got it here in front of me.
The irony.
I'm eating bloody muesli. I've started doing those overnight oats things. They're delicious. So I'm using muesli as a negative while eating muesli, and that's kind of what I'm talking about, this lazy generalisation that doesn't really apply anymore to what the Green Party represent, but does still apply to some attitudes towards the Green Party.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my journey into, say, I'm lucky. I work in between two sectors. I'm a producer and a presenter on one side when it comes to making content, and I'm a sustainability consultant on the other side. Is actually working both that created this perfect Venn diagram.
Wow.
And one company that I work for in the media world is a sustainability consultant. Actually, I believe a close friend of yours started it. We're making waves in what the media industry can do in sustainability. However, what I have learned, which is crucial, is that in the industrial side of environmentalism, so much more can be done if you target the things that affect the day-to-day, affect the bottom line, affect the efficiencies of a supply chain, affect the employee side of things, perks, benefits, etc., etc. And sometimes I think there's too much of a focus on putting the entire weight of environmentalism and all the world's climate problems on the shoulders of humans, where really there's avenues we can tackle bit by bit through industry that have the same difference without it all being labelled in the same way. That essentially there's a lot of people in the world that just don't have the privilege to be able to think like that. They're too busy thinking about what their day-to-day is, which is completely fine, and it's case for so much of the maybe developing world where they don't have the privilege of thinking about this.
You're really... I mean, every caller this hour has been a wonderful advocate for the party that they have all supported. Is there a branding problem then, do you think?
I think branding, I think it is one of the issues. It's that immediate association with green being about this type of person. Yeah. When it really, we're in this is how I personally feel at the moment with UK politics, is that there isn't one party that ticks all my boxes at all.
No, same.
And I feel a little bit in the middle ground, almost like, political homelessness of actually not really knowing which one is right for me. And I've just moved out of Tower Hamlets. So I'm in Essex now. Tower Hamlets, Green Party came second to Labour. And it's a really, really strong Labour stronghold, Tower Hamlets. So for me, that actually kind of felt like a win.
Yeah. And the only way is up. And as we talked about in the first 2 hours of the programme today, getting increasingly hard to work out which votes Starmer is actually chasing at the moment, and that leaves a great opportunity for the Greens and the Liberal Democrats, and the new party as well, that Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana have started. How do we guard against the sort of Judean People's Front of Judea problem, where all of these leftish movements outside Labour all start eating each other's lunch?
It's a great question. I was actually thinking about it as you bringing this topic up today. It's like, what is the way forward for the Green Party? And I wondered, I know I hate to say this because I'm staunchly against pretty much everything they believe in, but do they need to follow the suit of Reform and do a brand change? Does it need to be UKIP, BNP turned Reform now, almost Reform being a word that is associated with improvement? Does Green need to have a rebrand where it's no longer the Green Party, it's the I don't know what, off the top of my head I'm not sure what they call it.
It'd be a miracle if you did. But with the big difference being, of course, that they actually had policies and ideas and the interest of the population at heart, as opposed to just slogans and invitations to hate people. But you're right, a name change can affect all manner of shifts in perception. Thank you, Saunders. 12:45 is the time. Phone lines are open. All positive, which is good and refreshing. But if you don't like the Green Party for reasons, if you know a little bit more than I do about perhaps the NATO Russia question, then I need your call as well this hour. 0345 606 0973 is the number. And how do we fix that thing that Saunders just articulated perhaps a little better than I managed to? That is, so how can a radio presenter sit in a studio eating muesli? Bircham muesli, I'm told, is the correct term for what I have concocted. I grated an apple into it and left it in the fridge overnight to soak. Delicious. How can a radio presenter sit in a studio slagging off or stereotyping a political movement as being muesli munching while literally munching muesli? That's one of the strangest questions I've ever asked you.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Gina wants to know, in fact a lot of people want to know, what's in my homemade muesli. Is your muesli homemade, James? If so, what's in it? Would you like to know? Shall I tell you? Here's what I do. 50 grams of rolled oats, 1 grated apple, a pinch of cinnamon, a little bit, maybe a couple of tablespoons of Greek yoghurt. I don't use salt, no. If you just heard someone meowing in the background, that was the producer. I also, then I add some nuts and seeds and berries from the Morrison's. I won't buy that again because I'll make my own in future, but I bought the Morrison's already mixed together nuts and seeds and berries bag, you know, like a sort of trail mix, a little bit of that. And then it gets interesting. What do you mean it's already in? Oh, thank you very much. Damsons from the garden. I've got a damson tree in the garden that I have successfully brought back to life. It's actually created loads and loads of fruit this year. So we've got damsons. I'm basically green. Oh no, I'm in the green. I'm growing my own fruit and veg. I'm eating muesli, putting damsons in my overnight oats, and then some milk. You can use almond milk if you want, or oat milk. But I had some proper milk, cow's milk, in the fridge, so I used that. Stick it in the fridge overnight, and it's just delish. It's absolutely lovely. But anyway, if you've just tuned in, you're not going to have the first idea why I'm talking about this, or possibly what I am talking about. But there it is. And hopefully my new cookery book will be out for... That's a joke. 12:50 is the time. But there is a new Mystery Hour game that will hopefully be out in time for Christmas. So come one, come all. Back to the Greens, and we'll stay in Suffolk, or we'll return to Suffolk, because that's where Andrew is calling from, albeit in urban Suffolk, namely Ipswich. Andrew, what would you like to say?
Thank you, and thanks for having me on. It's the first time I've actually managed to successfully get through, so
don't blow it, Andrew. The pressure's on now.
Absolutely. So I joined the Green Party in 2004. Back then they allowed lifetime memberships, so I took that up and been a member ever since.
Oh, yeah.
There's a few things that you've kind of alluded to earlier as well. So, for example, when you spoke to James in Suffolk, the councillor, when I was growing up, I grew up in Huddersfield in Yorkshire, and one of the wards there had a guy get elected for the Greens that's the Newsham ward, in I think it was 1996. And ever since then, they've kind of slowly built that up to all 3 councillors, and they've represented that ward ever since. Now, I personally believe...
So you mean performance produces...
Yes.
Longevity, so they actually produce the goods and therefore turn things upside down a bit in terms of electoral expectation.
Exactly. They have, I'll be honest, they've struggled in other wards, but they're getting there slowly. But I think that's one big thing. But referencing your book, it's also about always being right.
Yes.
So I found that a lot with the recent immigration arguments. For example, I don't know if you've seen the Ken Loach film, The Old Oak. For you, the benefit of your listeners that haven't, essentially you do get people in there who have absolute nothing. They're in poverty. And they see asylum seekers being housed near them, or refugees being housed near them.
A while ago, yes.
Yeah, they got a lot of things given to them, and people were like, how come they're getting all this and I'm getting nothing? The issue isn't them getting something. The issue is everybody else getting nothing. And I think things like tackling homelessness, tackling poverty, crumbling infrastructure, the health service, these are all things that the government need to invest in. And that'll stop.
And they're not talking about it much, and the Greens are.
I think there's a lot of dog whistle. Sorry.
I worry about the use of left and right in these contexts, because what you've just described to me could be loosely described as humanitarian politics, or if you were of a religious bent, then the cultural history in this country would sound very Christian. It's like Jesus' teachings to look after people who need looking after, and all of that kind of thing. And yet I was about to lean towards the word left. I was about to say, so it is very left-wing then, which, of course, for some people, you just mentioned dog whistles, for some people that sets off alarm bells that have been very carefully wired into their subconscious over the course of their adult life.
Yeah. So I think things like that, and things like making safe and legal routes, these are all things that I think the Green Party are kind of right in.
There's a big space there. Do you think they'll marry into? Do you think they'll get into bed with the Liberal Democrats?
There's been we have had agreements with the Lib Dems previously.
Electoral pacts.
Electoral pacts,
right.
Yeah. So there was times when we'd experimented in the mid-2010s, where we tried to do that with Labour, but they weren't being reciprocal back to us. So we'd have issues where we would say, I don't know, say in Calderdale, in Calder Valley, 2017, I think the Greens got something like 617 votes, and that was about how many Labour lost to the Conservatives by. The Greens stood down in the next election in 2019, but then the Conservatives won by 5,000.
So you're a real student of this, aren't you? I mean, you've got extraordinary amounts of figures at your fingertips. In the broad sweep of the years of your membership, have things ever looked better for the party than they look now?
Things are looking up. One thing I will, though, be honest with, I have made some notes previously to this call.
Good. Everyone should do that. Listen and learn. Listen and learn from Andrew. They're taking his responsibility seriously as a contributor to the programme. But it could be entering a very important phase then in its development. Yeah,
one of you callers discussed about communication, and I think, yes, there is certainly a communication issue and something that needs to be addressed. To me, the party's always had the right policies and viewpoints, but the way that those viewpoints are kind of put out there haven't been great. Obviously, there's been a lot of external things, like, how bad the Conservatives were that led to Labour's victory and so on. But there's a lot of things like communication, and there's a group called Greens Organised within the Green Party now, which is
Go on.
They don't really want to be known like this from a branding point of view, certainly, but it's kind of a bit like a version of Momentum in a way.
Okay, well, I mean, all of this gets a bit more pertinent and more relevant as the party grows. I like what you're telling. I like a lot of what you're telling me. But the question of how united a front that they're going to be able to present has popped up in the course of the programme. I thank you, Andrew. 12:56 is the time. I don't know what the problems are with regard to the NATO and the Russian question. I think that Zack Polanski has expressed a desire to leave NATO when the Ukrainian conflict is over. But again, they sound like a pretty thoughtful bunch, and he may well change that. It's a recent article from Byline Times saying that he has called on his party to abandon its commitment to the UK's remaining in military alliance with America and other European nations, which sets off alarm bells, but because of Donald Trump. So it's not that he's got that sort of leftish opposition to NATO that comes from a kind of slightly weird reverence for Stalinist Russia. It is revulsion at what Donald Trump represents that drives it, but I think that would be quite hard to get over the wire. It is 12, well, Sheila time pretty much. It's 12:57. Just a couple more words on damsons. Did you get that? I said a couple more words on damsons.
Me?
It's a lovely colour. It's a lovely colour. Damsel, not in distress. So 2 things for people who care about these things. Mark says, don't get all big-headed about your new tree, James. It's not a new tree, sorry. Don't get all big-headed about your tree. It's actually been a bumper year for all soft fruit in 2025. We're ending an hour of rare positivity on the programme with conversations about fruit trees. And Paul says, James, I love you, but you've never sounded more middle class. That's not true. Talking about what I put in my muesli it shouldn't sound middle class, that, because it's actually quite cheap. You could have done it a lot cheaper than I did, but I got half of it out of my own garden. The time I sounded most middle class was when I told you about getting a blister from stirring my risotto so vigorously. That's the most middle class I've ever sounded, actually, Paul, so stick that in your pipe and smoke it. We'll be back tomorrow from 10. If you missed any of today's show, including my recipe for overnight oats, you can listen back on Catch Up on both Global Player and the LBC app. You can stay up to date on all the top stories and recipes and put your news categories in the order you want. You can pause and rewind live radio and listen to a range of podcasts. Do you think there's a market for an LBC presenter's cookbook?
Oh, yeah.
What would you put in it?
Oh, my gosh, because I've only really come into my own in terms of cooking in the last 5 years.
Oh, that's nice.
Can I be head of dal?
Yes,
Indian dals?
Absolutely you can. I can have a whole chapter. We'll have a whole section on dals. Eleanor's got a few dal recipes up her sleeves as well.
By the way, I can out middle class you anytime you want when it comes to stupid things to say on the radio about food. I once said 100 years ago on the radio, in all seriousness, wasn't trying to be smart or anything. I was just talking about that time I was fig picking in Andalusia when I was an au pair. Fig picking.
Well, I've never heard it called that before. Yeah. Coming up at 4 on LBC, it's Tom Swarbrick, but now it's Sheila Fogarty.
James O'Brien on LBC.